Great. Then,
kasnije neku vašu intervenciju pri montaži.
Great. Okay, a very warm welcome this morning to the BarMetal Final Conference. We have been working very hard for 2 years on this project and are very keen on sharing its lessons learned with all of you today, and are grateful for all of your time and participation in today's meeting. Like we mentioned, we have the language interpretation that is being set up at the moment. And hopefully you'll be able to listen in your preferred language very soon. And at the same time, during the meeting, we will have a lot of interventions from a different group of people. And if you would like to ask questions to the speakers or have burning questions that you would like to have addressed, please feel free to use the chat function below, as well in the bar below. And we will try to get to all of your questions definitely during the meeting. Chantal, could you pass on to the next one? So this is our agenda of the day. We first start with an overview of the work that we have been doing within the BarMetal Project. We will then move on to a panel. We will have a short stretching the legs and coffee break. After that, we will have a block on presentations from different country experts, and we will have a panel with social partners. And after that, we will finalize our call today with some closing remarks. Again, if you have any technical issues that you experience, please also feel free to reach out to myself and Shantanu, who's under WageIndicator Foundation, and I'm also from WageIndicator. So please feel free to ask your questions, also technical, in the chat if you need to. Okay. Then on to the next. I would like to invite Maria Enrica Virgilito from PISA, who has been leading the project as well as afterwards we will hear from Professor Gerard Bosch from the University of Duisburg-Essen. But first, I would like to ask Marika to take the stage and walk us through the BarMetal Project and some of its emerging challenges. Marika, you have the floor.
So thank you so much, and good morning to everybody. I would like really to thank Fiona and the WageIndicator Foundation for having provided the technical infrastructure to hold today the final conference of the BarMetal Project. This project has been a quite intense activity in terms of trying to improve opportunities for social dialogue inside a European framework that is challenged by processes of digitalization, automation, and decarbonization. Along these 2 years, a group of researchers and a group of also social partners have collaborated across many countries, many European countries, actually 12 member states and 1 candidate country, in order to understand how opportunity and condition for social dialogue can be improved. Today, you will have the occasion to learn a series of findings that we've been putting forward during the last 2 years, and I hope you will appreciate the richness of the results that this group of scholars and researchers has produced. I don't want to take much more time as our schedule is quite tight, so I will just go ahead, and if Fiona, you don't want to add any other type of information or consideration, I would invite Professor Gerard Bosch, that has served in the project as an external advisor, to share with us an overall positioning of the condition of the BarMetal, of the results of the BarMetal project, but better I would say of the automotive sector and of the general metal sector, has challenged by the 3 processes at stake. So I will leave the floor to Gerard.
Yes, thank you very much, Marika. Um, do you see my screen? Is everything okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, I want it. Oh, yeah, now. Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very glad that I'm asked to summarize the results of the 12 country reports on the question digitalization, automatization, decarbonization, and the impact on the labor market in the different countries. First of all, I would like to make a difference between structural change and transformation through DAD. We had always a structural change in the past, and this is a shift of employees between sectors and the result of many independent market decisions. Transformation differs from this structural change in the past. It's an upheaval due to several simultaneous trends, DAD, but also, especially in the EU, not in Asia, the demographic change plays a substantial role. And the transformation is intended and thought from the end. It's based on policy goals, decisions, and regulations, like the reduction of CO2 emissions by 2050. And this requires a complete restructuring of the economy with new regulations and huge investments in an increasingly competitive environment. So the advantage is we have long planning lead, more opportunities and more time for decision on national, regional, and company and plant level to prepare for the transformation. And also important is that the transformation lasting until 2050 or even longer affects several generations of employees, and many of them are not yet in the labor market. And this we have to think of when we talk about training. So DAD has a strong impact on the manufacturing industries. This industry is a leading sector for the development, for example, of Industry 4.0 and also for decarbonization. And far-reaching decisions on decarbonizations in the metal industry are already taken, like the ban of the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2035. And this requires a reorganization of the whole value chain. Also, this decision of the EU is put in question right now. It is a leading policy decision for the industry. The 12 countries in our panel have all strong manufacturing industries, and in nearly all countries, the automotive industry is the most important sector. The main difference is that some countries have own OMEs, like Germany, France, Italy, and Sweden, and Eastern and Central European countries belong to the, as is written in one of the reports, to the integrated periphery in the automotive industry, with high or only exclusive foreign ownership. So the Central and Eastern European countries are mostly production hubs with high shares of blue-collar workers and lower shares of R&D, because this is concentrated in the countries of the OMEs. And also the strategic services, other strategic services and high value-added products are concentrated in countries of origin. And you can see this if you see here the number of R&D personnel in manufacturing in thousands. And I think the pure numbers are also important, because they show the differences between the countries. Germany by far has the highest share, and then the other countries with OMEs are following, and there are low numbers in the Central and Eastern European countries. When we look to percentages, the picture changes a little bit, because the Scandinavian countries are, the Netherlands, with high shares of R&D investments, are at the top of the league in Europe. So how has the labor market and the production in these industries developed over the last decades? You can see in the graph the overall change in the industrial production index, which also gives a hint on the employment levels, and we can see that in most countries we had a strong employment production growth and also employment growth in the years 2005 to 2020, and there were production losses in some countries in our study, like France, Italy, a little bit in Sweden and Denmark. But what is important, in the past, we already had digitalization, and this is not Industry 4.0 is not a new phenomenon. It's gradually implemented, and implementation has started already in the early 2000s. And what we can see is strong impacts on productivity growth. And Robert Solow, the Nobel Prize winner, already wrote in 87 about the productivity paradoxon, that we have IT everywhere, but we don't see it in the IT everywhere, but we don't see it in the productivity figures. And therefore, we had strong employment growth in the manufacturing in most of the 12 countries, as I already mentioned. And then when it comes to forecasts of production and labor market impacts, the picture changes. The forecasts show high job risks for producers of components for combustion engines. And the open question is, will they be avoided by replacement production, like the production of batteries, which is the case in some countries where battery production and plants are built or are replacement production in existing plants. What is also important is when we talk about job losses and gains in countries, we should not only focus on DAD, but the job losses and also gains may be the result of relocations, and the job losses, of course, of shrinking sales, which we are confronted right now because the sales of electronic cars are not going very well in many countries. But what is quite clear, and that's all reports are writing, the successful implementation of DAD is a prerequisite for job retention and creation in the future. And it's one of the main questions to be the main challenges for the OMEs and the whole value-added chain to be competitive in this field. All countries try to support companies in implementing DAD, and the measures range from tax reliefs to direct subsidies, the promotion of R&D, the expansion of the IT infrastructure at national and also at a local level, targeted regional policy for areas which are affected by job losses or by strong structural change, the modernization of VAT, and also the promotion of social dialogue. But we can see major differences here and also in the other fields of policy measures, and this will become clear in the following panels. It doesn't move by now. Yeah, okay. So a major point is new skill requirements. As I said, DAD is a project for several generations. Therefore, also education and initial training is as important as retraining. And the main trends which could be observed in the case studies in the different countries there are higher skill requirements, and there is less demand for unskilled workers, also in the production hubs in Central and Eastern Europe. And they are developing new qualification profiles in which several domains and existing occupations are combined from metalworking, electrical engineering, or information technology. So, for example, in Germany, the occupation of the mechatronics fitter has been created, as well as in other countries too. And in the battery production, new skills are required, high voltage electricians and also chemical workers, which is really changing the character of the industry. And high voltage electricians is usually because of the dangerous license training, which has to be structured to a certain degree. But what is also true, not everybody has to be trained. Broad skills are often transferable, for example, for electricians or in white-collar occupations for accountants. So all countries are confronted with a revision of occupational profiles, and this definitely takes place in a more organized way in the Danish and German dual system of apprenticeship by the social partners. But it is starting in all other countries in sectoral, regional, or national committees. But in many countries, there's definitely a lack of structured initial and further training. And the skill requirements will continue to change over the next 30 years. So there is needed a continuous modernization of training contents. What has been observed and what is probably in all countries and what is probably mitigating the fear of job losses is the overall labor shortage, and foreign workers are recruited, and Central and Eastern European countries turn into immigration countries. Like this has taken place 30 or 40 years ago in the Southern European countries. So a main question is who is paying for the retraining? And in the graph, I collected some data from the OECD on labor market programs, on investments in retraining. And one can see that only in a few countries we have investments in training through labor market policies. And in other countries where I hear other people talking here, this is a little bit confusing.
Yes,
Marcin, can you please?
Yes.
Marcin,
Sorry.
can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah. But this figure of the OECD on labor market investments in training does not give the full picture, because you have obviously in many countries smaller qualification programs via EU structural funds, and in some countries like the Scandinavian countries, you have substantial grant and loans systems for adult education. But the problem when the state is not investing in retraining, there takes place an individualization of costs. And this is definitely a disadvantage for the low-skilled and also for the SMEs who do not have the money for such kind of investment. Obviously, learning takes place also through technology transfer and transfer of training programs. Volkswagen has an own battery academy, which is also providing coordinated training. And this takes place within the OMEs, but not necessarily to the SMEs, which are really disadvantaged. In many countries, they are set up regional networks and regional training centers, which are crucial for training in SMEs. In Germany, for example, there has been established 27 regional networks financed through the Automotive Industry Future Fund. So I will come to the social dialogue and say a few words about Germany, which is not represented in the following panels. In the German manufacturing, we have a high trade union density of 40%, and the coverage by collective agreements is high, and in the car industry with 87% even higher. So contrary to other sectors in Germany, this is a domain where we really have an intensive social dialogue. And in this industry, we have a long tradition of industry-wide collective agreements on job protection and retraining. And these collective agreements, partly dating back to the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, have been updated. And recently, there were concluded new future-orientated collective agreements for DAD. And these are usually negotiated packages, which include job guarantees, investment guarantees, training, and commitments to maintain locations. sometimes also commitments on transfer of workers to other companies. The trade union, because of its strong trade union density and influence in the industry, is represented in the National Platform on Industry for Zero. And there, its focus is on work organization, job protection, and training. It's also represented in the Future Fund for the automotive industry. And the union succeeded, together with the employers, that 27 regional transformation networks with a total of 200 million euro are financed through this fund. And today there's a parallel meeting to this meeting of this regional network. And the modernization of occupational profiles in the German dual system of vocational training, they are decided by the social partners and not the state. It's a purely decision by the social partners. The state is only helping by experts through the Federal Vocational Institute in Bonn. What are the results so far? What works, what doesn't work? This is the main question, of course. And I summarize it in the following way. First, social partners are main actors in the transformation, and all personal measures are negotiated and not unilaterally determined. And this is quite a difference to many other countries. Thirdly, a priority is given to internal change, which often is only possible with further training. Fourth, we have standardized training in broad occupational profiles. And fifth, the effects of the regional networks and the future-orientated CBs are not yet evaluated. So it's difficult to say something on them. But what we also can see, the transformation is a very dynamic environment. And just recently, I think a week ago, Volkswagen terminates the collective agreement on protection against dismissal at the end of the year because of slow sales of the electronic cars. So there will be negotiations take place, but dismissals might be possible. So my conclusion, just transition through social dialogue is in the common interest of employers, employees, and the state. I think it's necessary to ensure acceptance among employees and also to avoid labor shortages and costly unemployment. And the long-term technological transformation requires planning lead time, and this gives time for early information of all parties involved and planning of future training and replacements. In practice, however, company case studies often show late information about investments and also then late decisions on personal measures. The transformation costs are mainly borne by the companies that also benefit from them. That's correct. And there takes place a transfer of knowledge across borders. And the state support for retraining, replacement, and technology transfer to SMEs is necessary. They are the weakest part in the value-added chain. And finally, the analysis of new skill requirements and updating of training contents together with social partners is more successful than if it is done only by the state top-down or by unilaterally by the employers. Thank you very much for your attention.
I would like to thank Professor Gerhard Bosch for his insightful presentation and for having set the stage of our final conference. I believe that having considered Germany as in the project the so-called shadow case, or better, a benchmark model, we have now the possibility to understand how vis-a-vis a purported benchmark model that has been discussed, it's already under threat, other country may behave. So just to make a word, a consideration about the importance that the project put not only on social dialogues, but also on working condition and actual job losses that could be due to this type of transformation, but more, I would say, to the lack of planning and lack of being prepared to face such type of transformation. Now, I would like to give the floor to Fiona and the WageIndicator staff in order to show the video that provide a glimpse, a collection of results of the project. Thank you so much.
One second, sorry. Let me just make sure it's optimized for the video. Is my screen visible to everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
European countries face increasing pressure to adapt to complex technological and production changes, such as digitalization, automation, and decarbonization, which impact the labor market, leading to risks of shortages and mismatches in skills and employment. The BarMetal Project investigates how these trends affect collective bargaining, a crucial governance process in addressing labor market transformations. The project concerns the metal sector and covers 12 European countries, including 11 EU member states, Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, Germany, France, Italy, Poland, Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania, and EU candidate country Serbia. The BarMetal Project analyzed the trends in digitalization, automation, and decarbonization, DAD, and how social dialogue and collective bargaining responded to these trends at various levels. European level, sectoral level across the 12 studied countries, company level with chosen case studies in each country. At the European level, social partners, industry all, CMET, and other stakeholders agree that insufficient attention is paid to the impact of EU decarbonization policies on workers and the labor market. Trade unions consider the coordination and involvement of social partners at European level a key step to ensure workers' participation in decision-making and to strengthen social dialogue and collective bargaining at the national level. Employers, on the other hand, emphasize the need to ensure communication and cooperation within the European Commission. Challenges posed by DAD are considerably diversified and strongly depend on the different collective bargaining and social dialogue institutions and opportunities in the metal sector of different countries. Social partners in the metal sector seem to be aware of the challenges posed by DAD. However, most of the case studies show that these topics are rarely subject of in-depth social dialogue at company level, even less so for collective bargaining. The exception seems to be Germany, where future-oriented agreements play an important role at both the sectoral and company levels. In the cases of Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands, countries with developed collective bargaining, trade unions, and employee representatives seem to be less involved in the implementation of DAD. However, co-determination and workers' participation schemes and practices at the company level ensure an adequate level of information and the possibility of consultation and intervention on the consequences of technological change. In France and Italy, the decline of collective bargaining at the sectoral level in favor of the company level is also evident in the context of the decarbonization process. In the automotive industry, for instance, employers and trade unions rely on company-level agreements to enable cost-effective transformation and to preserve employment. However, there is evidence of a lack of coordination in collective bargaining at the sectoral level, particularly on DAD issues, where social partners should remobilize their ability to reach agreements. In the CEE countries under study, Czechia, Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, Romania, and Serbia, weak industrial relations institutions seem to severely limit collective bargaining and social dialogue on DAD issues, both at sectoral and company levels. The countries face the need to develop national-level strategies on technological change, which could address reskilling needs and stimulate more collective bargaining on the topic. To conclude, the findings point to a need for strengthening social dialogue and collective bargaining in relation to digitalization, automation, and decarbonization. This applies both to the sectoral and the company levels, and in particular, by improving the coordination of collective bargaining between these levels. There are opportunities for enhanced involvement of workers' representatives and trade unions in company decisions and industrial policymaking. Social partners should be aware of the challenges posed by technological change and decarbonization, and bring these challenges up more often in collective bargaining. A particular area to spur social dialogue and bargaining is vocational training and reskilling of workers to meet the changing needs of employers. EU-level social dialogue can facilitate more coordination and support to meet these needs across member states and candidate countries. The findings of the BarMetal Project, including country reports, fact sheets, videos, as well as a toolkit for setting up company-level social dialogue, are available for free at the project website.
Thanks a lot, Shantanu, for showing the video. We will also be sharing all of the videos and all of the documentation by the end of the webinar. So you can access and read all of the information yourself as well. I would now like to start and invite our panelists of our first panel discussion, which is moderated by Marta Kahankova from CELSI. And I would like to invite Bengt Larsson from Linnaeus University, Armando Cetrulo from PISA, Tibor Mesman from CELSI, Alina Popescu from the University of Economics in Bucharest, and Michal Aramdrenko from the University of Belgrade to join us for our panel discussion. Welcome. These are all of the researchers that have, respectively within their own country or countries, have done research on some of the challenges within the metalworking sector. And Marta, I give you the floor to manage your panel.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Shantanu, can I have the slide, please?
Yes, 1 second.
The way we would like to go a bit deeper in the country-specific experiences is a panel discussion, as Fiona already introduced, and we have prepared some guiding questions, and our experts will be able to share with us some more specific experiences that provide additional information to the video that we have just seen and to the challenges identified. So I will go straight to the first question. Next slide, please. And if you could all think of how the technological change in the metal sector is actually unfolding in your country, or some of you, if you have broader regional knowledge, that is also very welcome. So if you could summarize the main issues, key developments that you think are especially important for understanding how the technological changes affect social dialogue and collective bargaining. And I suggest we move from the north to the south. So I would first invite Bengt to report on the situation in Northern Europe, and then we move down through Central Europe to Southern Europe. So Bengt, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Marta. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Yes, thank you so much, and thanks for these introductory lectures and the video. Very nice to see, and gives a very great context for our discussion here. I will talk about Sweden and Denmark, the Scandinavian countries in the project. So first, to reconnect to Gerhard Bosch's presentation, as you could see, there is a very high share of research and development personnel, and also in investments. And both countries have since quite long been at the forefront in DAD generally. And you can say there's a strong joint consensus from politics, employer organizations, and trade unions that it is really important to keep up in developing DAD and performing the twin transition to stay competitive. So I mean, this is, I would say, it's not so much a problem of job losses in introducing DAD as in keeping jobs through the twin transition. That's the point of departure. Still, there are some slight differences between these two countries. In Sweden, for instance, you have a concentrated. The manufacturing is quite concentrated on many large manufacturing companies, and there's a rather strong both metal and automotive industry in Sweden. Whereas in Denmark, by tradition, there is a larger dependence on SMEs, and the metal industry is a bit smaller. And in Denmark, the production of machinery is the most important part. And this is, of course, important as these are very investment heavy developments, and things may go slower in smaller companies, and there may be quite a few different difficulties there. There is also a difference between Sweden and Denmark in the discussion of the potential problems connected to digitalization and automation. At the sectoral level, from both trade unions and employers, there is a very consensual view on, also in policy documents and reports, that there are quite few negative consequences discussed from the DAD transformation. Rather, it's a very strong highlight also from trade unions that DAD is, and particularly digitalization and automation, is important to keep and even to bring home jobs through increased competitiveness. And also a strong focus on reducing monotonous and heavy tasks for employees. In Sweden, there is a bit more discussion about the risk for job losses, and a somewhat stronger focus is on the risk of polarization of jobs and between workers with different skill levels. But still, there is quite some consensus of the importance of DAD between the social partners. Another difference in relation to decarbonization, I would say, is relating to the Swedish current development. Quite some experts and the opposition find that the current government is lacking in actual environmental policies and measures to reach both national and EU level goals set up for the future. So a bit more, perhaps you can say a bit, the policies are a bit more in line with keeping up with using regular gasoline instead of stimulating electronic and battery-driven vehicles. There are also great risks in connection to the green growth, and this is quite currently hot topics. There is a strong debate, not least in Sweden, about the actual prospects for the high prestige projects of green steel. So this is very expensive and huge investments with which are a bit risky. Some experts, economists, believe that this is an enormous destruction of capital. Similarly, there are big questions concerning turning the ambition in the Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, turning the mid-northern parts from what you could say an older forest and rust belt into a new battery belt. There have been some really big plans, but the only large of the planned battery plants is currently in crisis. So there is quite a discussion about long-term investments and the prospects to make this successful right now. So thank you, Marta.
Thank you, Bengt. Very interesting. And let's move now to Central Europe. Here we have the expert Tibor Messmann, who works mostly on Hungary, but he also has a broader regional knowledge. So Tibor, I wonder, can we see similar trends in this region compared to what we just heard from Sweden and Denmark in terms of some consensus, a focus on long-term investments, but slightly different economic structures that then facilitate some differences, some divergences in responses.
Yes, thank you very much also for the invitation, and it's really great to participate in this crescendo of the project with many participants and social partners involved too. Yes, so I believe that things are interconnected in many ways, but in my presentation I would stress more the specificities of the Visegrad region, and maybe even going a little back to the past in order to understand the future. So what I wanted to especially highlight when talking about the Visegrad countries, and these are among the first EU member states, is that industrialization and transformation happened as it's written in the Polish report already in the 90s, and we have to know that. So these bunch of countries have rich experience of the painful transformations from earlier. And I'm saying this also because heavy industry and industry was built based on cheap energy. So this is something that has to be kept in mind. So based on Soviet energy in the past. And then, and this is since BarMetal was looking back in the last 10 years, there was a big revival of industrialization, the so-called reindustrialization after the so-called global financial crisis of 2009, when these kind of comparative advantages were used by some countries more than others. So, for instance, Hungary used, like this kind of reconnect with the Russian cheap energy much more than Poland. What I also want to mention is the ecosystem of manufacturing, which is, I think, quite different from the Nordic countries, and if we think about the two, I think there are two key dimensions here. One dimension is the energy intensity of production in metal. So there is a big difference between basic metal production, for instance, you can imagine, or for instance, like an automotive company, which maybe has higher value added with R&D functions, etc. On the other hand, there is also the big difference between company size. So typically, we have big difference between large companies, which are dominating typically, and medium and small enterprises, typically small, right? So there is this kind of discrepancy. So I believe if we have this 2x2 table, you can imagine that you have 4 categories, so to say. I mean, and then the small, medium-sized for basic metal production, let's say the energy intensity is not so typical, so let's forget about that. But if we think about the tree and how the tree, let's say, and now I'm coming to this, to the question of technological change with its key elements, 3 pillars of automation, digitalization, the decarbonization. It impacted very, very differently over the last years, especially among these categories. So maybe first to say that so the first thing is about the big energy producers, which go into really huge crisis currently. So you can imagine that the decarbonization and the quota for CO2 is massive. And at least companies in Hungary, the biggest steel producer, went into bankruptcy procedure, then reprivatization, and there is a big insecurity currently. What is going to happen after a new investor came in, but even the new green technology investment is insecure. So this is one end. The other end, and this is, I think, typical for all the countries in the Visegrad region, is the dominance of multinational companies, which are subsidiaries. And I also reconnect to Professor Bosch's presentation, the integrated periphery when it comes to automotives, which means that these are, we have subsidiaries of multinational companies in automotives, which are still the pioneers of technological change, especially digitalization, right? So digitalization, because in the meantime, automation, I think it's quite widespread, at least semi-automation is widespread, both among OEMs and car producers and and its suppliers. And then the final part are the small, medium-sized, and which are typically in the ecosystem of the big. And we see that they are really suffering. We see already that the suppliers are suffering, both in terms of production, both in terms of employment security. We will come, I mean, it impacts also collective bargaining that we will come back later. But altogether, we see that they are very much on the brink and hugely dependent on multinationals. So altogether, we see this kind of top-down kind of approach, and I think the European Union, the strategy within the European Union, we see the derivative of that approach to, let's say, save the big companies and not think that much about the small ones, not think that much about the infrastructure, for developing infrastructure for enterprises and for job security, skill formation, etc. And yeah, I think we will come back later on to the impact on skill formation and collective bargaining later.
Thank you very much, Tibor. We also have covered Romania in the research, and I wonder, we have a Romanian expert with us, Alina Popescu. Romania has also been a country receiving a lot of foreign investments, also being exposed to the similar challenges. So I wonder, Alina, could you please walk us briefly through the main the situation in Romania and the technological challenges? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. Yes, indeed. The situation is the following. In Romania, in the metal sector, technological change is slowly gaining momentum, driven by external pressures from the EU level legislation, for external pressures for modernization, but also for internal pressure to improve productivity and reduce costs. We have a slow pace of digitalization. The production has a limited automation in Romania. In the metal sector, the density of industrial robots is very low. However, in the automotive production, this is the highest density of industrial robots. At the same time, these DAD challenges impact the workforce, and we have a particular situation with labor shortages. We have identified in the metal sector, like in other industry, a severe shortage of qualified labor. The demographic challenges, the aging population, high immigration rates are contributing to this shortage. And at the same time, the situation reveals a skill gap and mismatch. There is a significant gap between the skills of workers and the demands of the new technology-driven industrial environment. In particular, going directly to the impact of foreign direct investments, we have this situation, and it emerges very often in discussions in collective bargaining. The dependency of foreign investment. The dependency of foreign investment has been seen as an imbalance of power in collective bargaining. The situation shows that especially in the automotive industry, we have multinational companies that dominate the production, of course, and this is coupled with a weak union presence and fragmentation on the side of employees. At the same time, we identified an employer resistance. Many employers, particularly in the metal sector, may resist efforts to strengthen collective bargaining, preferring to retain control over the business decisions. And decisions regarding DAD implementation have been revealed to pertain only to employers. So unions did not address these issues so far. At the same time, another challenge is the lack of expertise in DAD-related negotiation, and in general, lack of expertise in collective bargaining. In collective bargaining in general, and in DAD-related negotiations in particular, because the complexity of technological advancements require a particular knowledge, and bargaining around DAD requires a deep understanding of how these new technologies impact the workforce, and without specialized training and external support, there is this risk of being sidelined in the discussions. The wage productivity imbalance is another aspect, because we have, like in most other sectors, a global competition. So producers are under pressure to remain competitive. So in Romania, we have seen a significant wage growth, but this has not been matched with equivalent gains in productivity. I think that this, coupled with the employer control over DAD investment, gives us a situation where business decisions pertain to employers and have so far not been subject for collective bargaining.
Thank you very much, Alina. This was very efficient because you already answered the next question as well, which we will discuss in a minute. But let's still get some insights from two countries we still have left. I'm looking at Armanda. Armanda can report on the Italian situation, and I wonder if the competitiveness challenge and also the structure of SMEs versus large companies is also an issue in Italy.
Yes, thank you very much, Marta. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to celebrate also the end of our project. Yes, the case of Italy and France has important similarities because both countries have been experiencing an important slowdown of their automotive sector with respect to production level and also employment level for different reasons, because we know that in France there are different OEMs, whereas in Italy we have a national big player that is actually leaving the country, gradually leaving the country, with important consequences on the entire value chain at the national level. So trying to be really related to answer really to your question, Marta, with respect to technological change, it's clear that in this context of slowdown and difficulties of the automotive sector, digitalization has been introduced, and in general all the technologies that we can relate to the so-called Industry 4.0 paradigm have been introduced with the aim of increasing the competitiveness of the plants and also increasing in general the productivity of the entire production processes. This is something that we found in all companies, and it is something that also relates in some sense to the electrification, because the increasing productivity can be useful in a context of uncertainty related to the electric production. If we want to say also something on impact on labor that was said also at the beginning by Gerard, it's important that also in the case of Italy and France, we don't find evidence of job displacement, but rather of a general reorganization of the production process. But with respect to working conditions, we do find a clear intensification of the workload that is also strictly related to the use of digital tools and the possibility of monitoring the entire process to highly integrated systems. In terms of skills, we also find ambiguous results in the sense that from the one hand, given the higher complexity of the production process, we see some dynamics of upskilling also for some specific roles like related to teamwork. On the other hand, we also find that this skilling dynamic with respect to the reduced autonomy of workers, that they have to stick to the even more standardized production process, they need to avoid any deviation. Then to conclude, the despite these common patterns and these common trends that we found in all our plants, it's also important to stress that the way the actors involved develop and implement new technologies and the degree of advancement of these technologies within workplaces also depend on the set of dynamic capabilities that the different companies have, depend on their position in value chain, the sites, and also their knowledge base. And this is, I think, one of the important points that we should stress with respect to the relevance of case studies. It is in our project, we have seen the importance of case studies, and now case studies can help also to disentangle the multiplicity of effects that we wanted to study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Armanda. Yes, indeed, very interesting. And also the intensification of work is another issue on the long list. I would now give the floor to Mihail. Mihail has done research on Serbia, so maybe slightly different perspective, but maybe even not. And just a small technical remark, I would like to kindly ask everyone to speak slowly so the interpreters can catch all the key arguments. Thank you, and over to Mihail. You are muted, Mihail. Mihail, could you unmute yourself?
Okay, I'm sorry. I will. Well, the good morning, everyone. I would say that the technological change in Serbia is unfolding at a rather slow pace, and the metal and automotive sector has been only relatively recently revitalized, say in the last 10 or 15 years. It is currently completely dominated by foreign direct investment companies. So the pace of change very much depends on the place of such companies in global value chains, and even more importantly, their general specific production processes that have been allocated to Serbia. So if these processes are more of a sort of assemblage type and other not cutting edge type, then the change is typically slow. And also this means that the decisions are typically made unilaterally, but by headquarters of such firms. So even local management has a limited role. And that has been evidence in the past 5 to 6 years. Although the statistics, Serbia is a relatively small country, so a lot of statistics that we present depends perhaps on one big company, and that is the Fiat or Stellantis. So whether what's happening with it has some repercussions for the averages reported for this. But in any case, in the past 5-6 years, while volumes of production and exports have been stable or increasing, global value added is...
Mihail, I'm sorry, could you, the interpreters have a problem understanding you. Could you speak closer to the microphone?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Is this better now? Is this better now? How do you hear me? Okay.
A little bit
It's a
better.
bit better.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So, still, then when it comes to local SME firms, I would say that they're, somewhat more resilient, precisely because of the something that is considered to be a deficiency of Serbian foreign direct investment, and that is that there is a little connection with the local metal sector on the side of foreign direct investment firms. So there, the quality is low. It would be better to use any kind of set. Yeah, for the next, I will switch to laptop. I hope that my home computer is of good quality enough. I changed, so I'm really sorry for that. Okay.
Thank you.
There.
Thank you, Michał.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have now heard a variety of challenges. Some affect all of the studied countries. And on to the next question of discussion, we now want to investigate how does the industry relations system, so social dialogue.
There is a problem. We hear
bargaining.
French on the English channel.
There is no dedicated English channel per se, and I'm hearing Marta normally right now. Is that a
You
issue
can
for
choose
everyone?
you can choose original audio, and that should be that. Then you can most likely just hear, and otherwise you have to click on French if you want to listen to French.
Okay, let's continue. If you press original audio, you always hear what the persons are actually speaking, regardless of the language.
For a moment, we had French on the English, on the English channel.
Okay, I hope it is fixed now. Sorry about that. So we have about 22 minutes left until the end of this session. Let's integrate the second and the third question. Please, could you briefly summarize how or what kind of responses have you seen from the industry relations angle to these technological challenges, and what do you expect to happen in the future? For example, do you expect introduction of new topics on reskilling, upskilling to collective bargaining, or is there more a shift towards national level policy making to address technological challenges? So basically, a quick wrap up, again, following the countries and the regions. And this time we could start from Central Europe. So I would give the floor to Tibor, and then we again make a circle and a round around Europe. So Tibor, please.
Yeah, thank you. Today, Central Europe is really central. So yes, so altogether, trying to be very brief. Typically, when we talk about collective bargaining and social dialogue, one of the key things is that it's very decentralized, company-based. But more important for the project is the key finding is that the collective bargaining agenda as such was not enriched. So it's typically still limited to wage issues and working condition issues. And there is maybe one in the Slovak report. Actually, there is the two practices, the two best practices on the best side is that there are discussions on workers' protection in case of redundancy, or there is the issue of workers' right to training and reskilling in the light of especially the digitalization and technological change. But on the low side, and now I have in mind especially Hungary, is that the security of collective bargaining is quite low. So we have situations when collective bargaining agreements were broken. This is the case of the steel industry, of situations where the issues of social dialogue and collective bargaining is treated as something separate and very detached. And the same company, you have the situation when a wage agreement was signed, and only days later redundancies were announced, like massive redundancies. So these are now kind of like a double edge situations, but altogether I think on the positive side and looking in the future, in a way, answering also the second question is the question of skill formation and how skill formation can be done, and also beyond company gates, because we see that at best we have OEMs, typically OEMs that can invest in in-house training. But the issue of training and skill formation for small enterprises is a big issue, and in that sense, it's I mean, starting with the issue of whether trade unions can engage in bargaining at all, of whether these kind of costs, time, etc., can be secured for training, especially for, it was already mentioned, for the blue collar workers who are the most affected currently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tibor. So we know the story for Central and Eastern Europe, but I wonder if the situation in countries where collective bargaining has been very stable, and we always look at these countries that social dialogue and bargaining solves all the problems. So I wonder, Bengt, what is the situation in this case in Sweden and Denmark?
Yes, thank you, Marta. The short answer, if DAD changed the bargaining agenda and process, is not really. But let me explain a bit more. I mean, you know, there are a really strong tradition of collective bargaining in Sweden and Denmark, and in the Nordic countries generally. Strong trade unions and strong employer organization bargaining with high autonomy from the state. And even though there is no legal extension mechanism, we have very good coverage levels of collective agreements, and these are mainly on multi-employer sectoral kind, but with local adjustments, say for wages and some aspects of training and competence development. The DAD issues are not really part of the regular collective agreements. It's similar as what Tibor mentioned, except then for training competence development, which is of course really important in this situation, in this context. And similarly to what Gerhard mentioned from Germany, here are old specific collective agreements, say for instance in Sweden, the development agreement from 1985, which still are relevant and somewhat updated, also applies for new technology introduction. This does not mean that there is no influence by trade unions on DAD. There are other channels, as mentioned in the videos. The co-determination rights for employees to sit in on the board of directors for the company, have the right to getting information and being consulted. In Sweden, this is union representatives, and in Denmark, it's more like an elected worker representative, and they have kind of a work council construction with their cooperation committees. So these are, instead of collective agreements, these are the ways to be informed and consulted on more strategic company issues. But from the interviews, we see that trade unions locally are not that much involved in these strategic issues, except for the largest case companies studied, in which the union is important. But there is kind of, and particularly in the smaller companies, another kind of low-level employee influence. I mean, all from informal discussions, but also as regards the implementation and also suggestions of the selection of different robots, for instance. There is an influence from employees, and it seems to have been improved during the last year for employees. And this is because of some experiences of failed or very slow implementation when not involving the workers actually working with the new technology in the implementation. So in some of the small companies, they try to bring in employee involvement directly rather than trade unions. And in addition, as a last point of this institutional setup, a really important thing, and I think this is close to the German situation as well. I mean, there are really strong bipartite social partner organization and committees, and also some corporatist tripartite consultation for us with the state around DAD. I mean, you have in Sweden the Industry Development Council, in Denmark the Industry Association for Working Environment, and the Technology and Cooperation Committee. And these kind of support technological development for both employers and trade unions to with everything from information and even research to more kind of recommendations or guidelines, and of course a lot of policy statements to push the government to understand the interest of the sector at large. So to sum up for the future, I mean, it's of course important to keep up the good work, kind of the constructive bargaining process, to have a solid work within these joint forums, and to keep focus on the future in their common work, and the bipartite and tripartite cooperation on employment policies and vocational training. But there are some other issues, say for instance education system and competence development and training. This is a main challenge, and there is a lot of discussion about changes needed in the education system. Say, for instance, in Sweden, too few engineers being educated, and too little of as Gerhard mentioned, the Danish, the German apprenticeship systems. So there is a quest for more interest for the company's needs in education. So that's basically. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Bengt. This is very interesting that, if I understand correctly, a layer of stakeholders is emerging to strengthen the capacity of social partners to address technological change. So the ways of addressing it happen simultaneously at various levels and in various forms.
Yes, very much so, and this is connected to, of course, I mean, a long history of joint social partner organizations at the national and sectoral level in everything from health and safety and working conditions to, I mean, insurance system and training in times of restructuring and so on. So there's a lot of cooperation on higher levels going on. Yeah.
Yes. So I wonder, Armanda, in Italy, where there is also a long established structure for social dialogue, do you see similar responses of different stakeholders cooperating and responses emerging?
Yes, so in Italy and in France, as was also said in the video, in order to understand the answer, let's say, of industrial relations and trade unions, it's important to take into account that there has been this process of decentralization. So indeed, what we see is that these topics, and especially the decarbonization, is mainly discussed at a firm level, whereas at sectoral level, we don't really find any evidence of a convergence of interest coordination among actors. At firm level, what we observe is quite heterogeneous, so it's not possible to provide, let's say, a generalized interpretation, because in some cases we observe that the introduction of electric cars, let's say the transition to electric productions, is also related to a deterioration of working condition because of the need of ensuring productivity gains. In other cases, and this is also related to cases where there is a high value production, we see that actors, so unions and employers, are able to reach more advantageous agreement where in some the working conditions are preserved and also employment level are preserved. This with respect to the decarbonization. For what concerns automation and digitalization, and so in general technological change, despite all the actors recognize the relevance of these transformations, we don't find evidence of discussion and bargaining on these specific topics, if not in rare cases where also unions have, let's say, more bargaining power and also acquired competencies to discuss and bargain on these specific issues. And to answer to the last question, I think that part of this heterogeneity, also lack of a common pattern in bargaining on these topics, is also related, at least this emerged from our cases, from the lack of coordination at sectoral level among unions, and lack of a management of these problems and urgencies at local level. This is crucial because in the cases where we find a higher level coordination, we also observe more advanced ways of making collective bargaining. For instance, in one case, we observe a bargaining, there is a bargaining experience that is not only related to workers employed by the main companies, but also take into account all the workers that are employed by related companies in the same plant. So this is not on that, but still it shows how coordinating also allow to develop more advanced ways of bargaining. And to conclude with respect to the future agenda, that is the third question. What is really missing is not so much the trade unions' willingness to be involved, but really what is missing is a strong and solid and a long-term vision of European industrial policy that should be crucial in the face of the challenges that all European countries are experiencing today. An industrial policy that should, first of all, improve the industrial structure of the entire European Union, and also reduce the risk of restructuring that still we are observing, that in some sense is also increasing the wage competition among workers from different countries, from different European countries, and is also exposing all European workers to competition from other international players. So all in presence of a strong industrial policy at European level, it will be possible to make this transition a just transition, let's say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me draw your attention also to the chat box. If you have questions or comments, feel free to raise them in the chat, in writing, in whatever language. And due to the lack of time, we will not be able to have an interactive Q&A session, but I believe the panelists will be able to respond in writing in the chat as we move on with the agenda. But now, I saw we have one relevant comment that actually the context of the transition is crucial. It's a new trigger for unions to organize workers in the emerging industries. So now I'm looking at Alina again, which is also. So I wonder, Alina, is this something you identify with? Do we see this also in the Southern European countries that receive foreign direct investments?
Thank you, Marta. So let me understand the organization of workers. I think I missed this question in the chat.
We are discussing the responses of industry relations to these challenges. And one of the suggested responses from our colleague from Poland is that it's an opportunity for unions to organize workers in the new types of, the emerging type of green and metal production. So for example, in the battery production.
Yes, of course. Well, as I summarized a little bit and I anticipated before, what we've seen between two main global crises, namely the economic financial crisis in 2008-2009 and the pandemic, we've seen a dramatic decline in collective bargaining due to the introduction of a law in 2011, and this led to drop in collective bargaining from 98% to 35%. Now, in 2002, we have a new law on social dialogue. So we expect that this recent institutional change will help restore collective bargaining and organize the workers. In response to this EU push for stronger social dialogue and sectoral level agreements, we introduced, in Romania, this law has been introduced in order to facilitate unionization. And of course, it is related to the new developments with green and decarbonization because Romania is the third largest recipient of funds from the Just Transition Fund after Poland and Germany. The metal sector is with heavy industry, and it's severely impacted by this target for carbon neutrality by 2050. So far, as I explained the situation with the social dialogue, we have a limited engagement with the DAD. So the situation shows that DAD has not been extensively integrated into collective bargaining, and the unions focused on traditional issues like wages, bonuses, job security. Job security is even more important than wages for Romanian workers. But the opportunity is to train and develop the skills, because the most significantly, DAD has been addressed through training for employees. The gradual allocation and worker relocation is another characteristic. And workers, trade unions have helped a lot in this direction. And so this was the situation. Now, the opportunities. The main opportunity is to grow the focus on reskilling. As digital and automated technology continues to transform jobs, the unions need to negotiate more comprehensive training programs and include technological trend change into sectoral bargaining. In relation to green and decarbonization and the inclusion of this into DAD negotiations, another future opportunity would be to leverage EU support for strengthening collective bargaining and taking advantages of these funds to align national policies with EU standards, and this way unions can gain a stronger position in negotiations, particularly in issues on decarbonization and digitalization. As I said, there are a lot of funds allocated to Romania, and these funds at the same time, the allocation is tied to the accomplishment of the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience. So if the objectives of this Recovery and Resilience Plan are not met, the funds are sometimes cut or postponed. So it is very important to build union capacity, as I anticipated, to train unions, to provide them with knowledge on how to negotiate and build union capacity in order for them to address the real problems of the workers. So unions need to develop their own expertise in the areas of digitalization, automation, decarbonization through training programs. And at the same time, they have to address the issues that come: precarious work, flexibilization, even psychological problems of workers, and everything that is brought by this technological change.
Thank you very much. Later on the agenda, we also have some suggestions, some steps that we will hear after the coffee break. But now let me give the floor to the last panelist, Mihail. If you could wrap up, what is the situation in Serbia in terms of industrial relations, responses, and the expected steps that should be taken to strengthen collective bargaining for technological change.
Thank you, Marta. I switched to laptop. I hope now I will be heard better. Huh?
It's much, much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So DAD is not yet a big issue in social dialogue and collective bargaining for at least two reasons. First, Serbian employment, especially in metal manufacturing, has been in expansion despite the shrinking working age population. So it is labor shortages rather than unemployment that dominate the public discourse. And neither experts nor trade unions see the DAD as a big threat to current employment levels. Of course, there is a concern related to the skills, but still, since the nature of our industry, metal industry, is such that not most workers are highly skilled, it is also not expected to be one of major issues. Rather, it is the DAD is seen as a chance, rather as a means to increase productivity and wages in the sector. Actually, that's what I perhaps wanted to say in the previous intervention. We do have some islands of DAD revolution. And for example, there is a new model of Stellantis car in Kragujevac, which is electric vehicle, and it was launched only in July this year, the model Grand Panda, in full-blown electric and hybrid version. So the managing director of Stellantis and our president present. And the government provides high subsidies, both for employment and for sales of electric cars, 5,000 euros per vehicle. It is expected that GDP growth contribution would be 0.5% of our GDP only of that investment. It's probably overblown. But in any case, there is also some shadow over these plans because of the general crisis of automotive industry and sales of electric automobiles in Europe. Of course, I just going back to the issue of bargaining, as elsewhere, as in Romania and in other Eastern European countries, and specifically because of the reasons I just mentioned, the DAD is not on the top of negotiation agenda. Actually, it hardly features there. It's mostly on wages and the negotiations on wages and job conditions in general and job security in company level bargaining. And then when it comes to the future, the government, I would say, is currently a little bit ahead of other actors of industrial relations in terms of pushing for actually a specific aspect of DAD, and this is the related to the controversy with regard to the opening of the lithium mines, because in Serbia we have found a sort of huge reserves of the lithium, and the government pushes for actually not only exploiting the lithium mine, the prospectively open lithium mine, but also of establishing this entire vertical value chain. Of course, there is already the Stellantis electric car factory, and then also the home-produced lithium batteries in the large scale. But then that's really a sort of a controversial issue for the future, to which both trade unions and employers should also try to contribute. So that's basically what I wanted to say in this intervention.
Thank you very much, Mihail. So there is a lot to digest, and I also invite everyone to read the chat box. Interesting insights are popping up there. Feel free to use the chat also to share your own idea or respond. And now I believe everyone is ready for a coffee break. You do not need to disconnect, stay connected, and we will continue exactly on time with the next session, which walks us through more insights into responses at the EU level and also at offering some specific suggestions and tools for addressing the technological challenges at the company level and in collective bargaining. So stay with us and we continue 10:45. Thank you to the panelists as well.
Hi, Fiona, can you hear me?
Hi, Marcin. Yes, yes.
Okay. So as I wrote, we are recording the Polish version. We just started after the first the film was shown, and after that it's being recorded.
Okay.
We have now established a connection so that the interpreter, because they are basically using two meetings.
Yeah.
One meeting for the original meeting and the other one sending it into Polish. And we have two people who have joined the Polish channel, let's say, the Polish meeting.
Yeah.
I also established now that the interpreters can see the original meeting in the Polish meeting.
Oh, perfect.
So that means that the recording will include, because for the first part, when we started it after the film, there will be, well, both is recorded, the audio and the video as well, but the video is just black. But I managed now to establish another transmission, which is transmitting the original video to the Polish meeting video. So this will be included also in the recording of the Polish meeting, and I think this is what we can do now. I think it would be too risky now to try to change the setup of the original meeting. Yeah. Even though it should be possible to include more languages, just as I wrote you, but I would say we leave it as it is. It is working. So
I agree. This is
think,
perfect, and then we'll try to incorporate the Polish.
We are on the safe side, and for future meeting we have to check that more languages are possible during the setup.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay. Thanks so much for organizing this. Please grab a coffee. And we'll see you in 5 minutes.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a good coffee break. We will now resume our session, and I would love to invite Angelo Moro from Sant'Anna in Pisa, who will be chairing this session with us today, as well as Monika Marinskova from the Charles University in Czechia, Gabriela Medas from WageIndicator Foundation, and Barbara Sydokowska from the Institute of Public Affairs in Poland. But first, I think, Angelo, please introduce your panel and your session. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Fiona. I don't know if you all hear me. Yes, I assume.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, Fiona, for the introduction, and welcome everybody to this second session, block 3, of our final BarMetal conference. As Marta mentioned before, this session will delve a little bit deeper in the issues of collective bargaining at different levels, starting from the challenges at the European level, and then analyzing the role of collective agreements as a regulatory tool for responding to digitalization, automatization, and decarbonization, and finally presenting one of the main, let's say, results production of our project. This is a toolkit written with the results emerging from our research, a toolkit for social partners to address social dialogue at company level on the issues of digitalization and decarbonization. So this session will have, as Fiona said, 3 interventions of 15 minutes each. So I invite each of the presenters to try to stay within the time that is allocated to them, and because we have, as mentioned before, many other discussion later, and I will just invite everybody to raise questions using the chat. And after, and I will remember also that after this session, we will have a roundtable session with social partners, and after that, a Q&A session in which we also will have the opportunity to debate a little bit on what is emerging from today's discussion. So I'll give the floor directly to Monika Martinskova from Charles University. And please, Monika, the floor is yours. You have 15 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for stop sharing. I'll try to share my presentation, which is here. Share and maybe, okay, so this way. Okay, so what I'll try to present briefly in my 15 minutes will be mostly our comparative report from the project, which was not written only by me, but also my colleagues Barbara, Angelo, and Marika. So so it should put more emphasis, or I try to guide you through the EU level perspectives on the D&D challenges and the interactions between the EU level social dialogue and the national level social dialogue. So first of all, I would like to repeat a bit or remind ourselves the context in which we are working or discussing the topics of DAD challenge and the role of the social dialogue. So what we've seen in the last 3 decades in the European Union or European countries in general was the softening the social dialogue institutions and their role in policy making and in the protection of workers' rights and the flexibilization of the labor market. So all these resulted in weaker and weakening role of the social and sector, national and sector level of the social dialogue, while strengthening the role of the local firm and the local level. And these challenges posed by DAD or these processes of decarbonization, automatization, and digitalization are at the same time diversified and strongly depend on the different collective bargaining and social dialogue systems and also other labor market institutions on different countries. And at the same time, what is important to emphasize is that the role of the EU is limited in this sense, because in terms of vocational education, social policies, this all remains in the competence of the national countries. So that's why we are getting quite diversified landscape of the impacts and the solutions, how to emerge it, as we heard in the first part of the of our conference today. So looking at our countries, and it was already mentioned today, is that we are handling with the different social dialogue systems, industrial relations systems, and all of them having, and at the same time, different kind of economies, discussing C countries as integrated peripheries, while the core countries or the countries with sort of reducing impact or reducing scale of manufacturing, which experienced especially France and Italy in last 30 years. So, but at the same time, the very broadly speaking, the main observation from what we are getting from different countries is that DAD is rarely the subject of in-depth social dialogue at the company level. And when we compare this with the requirement or the call for just transition in these decarbonization processes, this seems to be this, I would call it, elephant in the room, which is more and more expressed loudly, that the mechanisms for addressing the challenge through the involvement of workers and ensuring that they won't get worse or worse off are not there. So we are missing these mechanisms at the EU level, or to not completely, but to large extent, we do. So also part of the story is that the management and the companies perceive it as this DAD challenge, DAD approaches, and how the company will decarbonize or how it will digitalize or automize is exclusive prerogative of the management. So not requiring the consultation with workers' representatives. So and in many cases, we heard it in our interviews that also trade unions share this view that this is like management thing to do. As was mentioned already in morning, was this like Germany, as we also keep it as a shadow case in the project, but these future-oriented agreements play an important role and are maybe the important example of how social dialogue is addressing the DAD challenges. So at the same time, when what we also see is also because of these like employers' lack of involvement to coordinate the topics, so they have a limited participation in social dialogue structures, especially in the C countries. So when looking at the EU level social dialogue in this context, in this diversified landscape of the EU, of different EU countries and sectors, basically, so in our research, we looked at the sectoral social dialogue committee for the metal sector, which encompass, along with the motor vehicles, also other subsectors of metal sector, like electrical equipment or transport equipment, computer, metal, other fabricated metal products. So, and this, I'm not going into like details how all these interactions functions, but basically social partners within this committee can decide whether they will call for a policy at the EU level. So call the European Commission to implement a measure which will be valid for the whole, for the all European Union, or they can come up with the conclusion, the so-called non-binding outcome, some joint text, which call for better, which highlight the issues which need to be tackled either at the different at the national level or within the EU policies, but not binding anybody else to deal with this topic. So just saying it, yeah, basically. So and so these topics of the joint text deal with the skills and development, vocational education and training, highlight the importance of participation of social partners, at the same time preserving this different landscape of industrial relations, so preserving the autonomy of social partners at the national level. So, and what we observed in this metal sector is that there has been only non-binding outcomes at the EU level social dialogue. At the same time, what needs to be mentioned is that for social partners, which is Industrial and CMED, this platform of sectoral social dialogue remains important platform for discussing and the challenges and also exchanges with the European Commission. So it is an important platform, but mostly this like soft regulation. And at the same time, social partners are not the only actors at the EU level landscape to discuss the topics. We have several other organizations of employers, of different partners in the, I don't know, education ecosystem. So different, we can even call it the lobbying groups, which also step into the and have some interest in the EU policies. So while the platform remains important, or the social dialogue platform remains important for exchanging the information and the best practices from affiliates of social partners, but there is at the same time sort of opposition into against any EU kind of regulation in this area, exactly because what I already mentioned is this diversity of national collective bargaining systems and also the education system, which remains the competence at the national level. So what is observed in terms of articulation of these challenges at the EU level is that also the informal interaction with the stakeholders, and not only the social partners. Social partners are one of those stakeholders. So this is even more important. So sort of informal meetings or joint events or different kind of conferences used to pass the message to the policymakers. And this was mentioned by social partners, but also by other organizations we interviewed in terms of how the DAD challenge is articulated at the EU level. So what is confirmed is the importance of informal ties. So not this formal social dialogue structures are there, but in the ecosystem of different channels, it's one of those. Yeah, so it's not the most important channel for the EU level policies. So what I have in this graph is exactly this interaction between the national level and the EU level social dialogue structures. Also, I tried to show the extent of the topic or the scale which different topics can be tackled. Company level addresses the sort of immediate company level issues, while the sector level can encompass broader sector level policies related also to DAD challenges, not to talk about the national level, which should also deal with the national level policies. And what is and countries have different mechanisms how to articulate these topics within the national level, and at some point employers and trade unions are associated within the EU level organizations so they have a chance to articulate the needs from the national level to the EU level. And these channels are rather weak because of lack of participation of some national level stakeholders. This is true for employers, especially from the Central and Eastern European countries. So then it's difficult to discuss the topics at the EU level social dialogue, when there is not enough voices represented, or the understanding of the issues from the employer's perspective within the EU level organizations of employers. So this is something which is yeah, it accounts to the level of participation and interest. So at the same time, we cannot say that employers are not active at the EU level, but they do not use social dialogue structures to do that. Yeah, they do lobbying and do these informal types. So also trade unions have to go and not to rely on the social dialogue at the EU level. So at some point, this is something a bit of a parallel what we observe at the national level, that the company level is the most important. So from the EU perspective, it's quite also hard to say about any kind of coordination between the different levels of social partners' activities. And so all this setting, or enough of this of using these channels, the lack of using these channels is undermining or there is obvious undermining of the scale effects of coordination. And at the same time, what we observe is that social partners, especially employers, keep coordinating on more spontaneous forms, which means that it might happen that at the end, different kind of companies being somehow aligned, either through the value chains or through the regional in the regional basis, they may coordinate, but this will be the ad hoc coordination, spontaneous, which will sort of undermine the public policies in education and reskilling. So this might be one of the risks of what this lack of coordination between the EU level and the national level, and maybe the even lower levels of coordination when these are missing. Yeah. So to wrap up a bit, I originally called these recommendations, but I think it's not to advise, or it's not to say that we have a recipe as a researchers for all these challenges going on. So I stay with naming the challenges for addressing the DAD challenge at the EU level. So first of all, the challenge remains to strengthen the role of the social dialogue if we still assume that the just transition should be channeled through the social dialogue structures at the
Monica,
national
sorry,
and
can
EU
you do
level.
this in 1 minute, please? Because
Yes, this is the last slide. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. So and another challenge is the improving the coordination with the national level through the greater involvement of social partners. So and this is again quite hard to achieve by anyhow else than just saying you have to. Or yeah. So and the last point would be the rising social partners and stakeholders awareness of the need of the integrated and coordinated approach, because this what we observe right now is quite a decentralized approaches, which translates to lack of public policies in many countries, and this is not good for workers nor for employers, and for the public sector as well. So I stop here. Thank you very much.
Angela, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you. Yes.
I was muted. So I was just thanking Monica for her presentation and giving the floor to Gabriele, who will present us with one of the main outcomes of the project. It is the collection of and the analysis of collective agreements concerning the digitalization, automatization, and decarbonization. So Gabriele, the floor is yours. And as everybody else, you have 15 minutes. And please, if you can stay within the
Thank you very much, Angelo. I will share my screen. Right, so Hope you can see it.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, we can.
All right. So this presentation will focus on the analysis of the European CBAs in the metal sector. First of all, I would like to start the presentation with a snapshot in numbers regarding the wage indicator collective agreements, also to give the framework of our analysis. So the database, the CBA's database, was established back in 2012 and is currently hosting around 3,000 CBAs from 70 countries all over the world in 28 languages. The agreements are collected and annotated according to a coding scheme with more than 1,000 variables. This means questions and options. And all the agreements are published in the WageIndicator national website, all in national languages and original text, of course. All the CBAs are internationally comparable, and this makes actually the WageIndicator collective agreements database the largest CBAs database in the world. The collective agreements are annotated according to 12 macro topics and related sub-questions. So here we can see the the 12 macro topics that we use for the analysis of the collective agreements database, which are job titles, training, apprenticeship, individual employment contract, job security, sickness and disability, work-life balance arrangements, health and medical assistance, equality and or violence in the workplace, working hours, schedules, holidays and days of leave, wages, worker representation and conflicts, social security and pension, and then maybe the most important part or topic in the framework of the BarMetal Project, new technologies and green clauses. So here we can see the map of the map of Europe with on the right side the countries and the number of countries that have been used for the analysis. So we have used 100 annotated and analyzed 134 CBAs in 19 countries. We can see that Spain, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, Czechia stand out as the top countries with the most metal sector CBAs in our sample. So with a range between 19 and 12 CBAs. While here we can see the sample, the NACE codes that we have used, of course, metal sectors that go from 2,400 to 2,900. We can also see the time range of the CBAs, which is quite recent, as most of the CBAs were signed between 2017 and 2023, but most of the CBAs, 29, were signed in 2021. While here we can see the distribution of the sample between sectoral and company level agreements per country, and we can observe a very balanced sample, which is almost equally divided. So we can see that 53% are company level in the graph. We can see marked in blue, and 47 sectoral level in orange. So we can see that Spain, Germany, Czechia, Slovakia, and Hungary are significantly represented with a majority of company level CBAs, while on the other hand, Italy, Sweden, Portugal, and Serbia have a majority of sectoral CBAs. Now we will start to analyze the findings according to the previously mentioned 12 topics. As per job description and job classification system, 82 of 134 CBAs refer to clauses related to this topic, which means 61%. We can highlight that Spain, Italy, Sweden, Serbia, Poland, and the Netherlands are the countries with more CBAs or highest rate referring to such clauses. About social security and pensions, 94 over 134 CBAs refer to such topic, which is the 70% of the sample. Among the countries with more CBAs mentioning some topic, such topic, we can see the Dutch, Italian, Spanish, and Swedish CBAs. But similarly, all the Serbian CBAs 5 and Polish CBAs 4 have such clauses regarding such topic. As per the training and apprenticeship, 113 over 134 CBAs refer to such clauses. And so the vast majority of the CBAs we can see that provide for such clauses with an overall 85% of coverage. Regarding the other topic, macro labor topic, employment contracts and job security, again, 113 over 134 CBAs refers to such clauses, so such topic. And we can say that most of the European metal CBAs, 85% of the sample cover such topic. We can also highlight that all the Spanish, Italian, Swedish, and Dutch CBAs contain such clauses in all 100% their agreements. As per sickness and disability, 101 of 134 CBAs refer to such clauses. Overall, 75% of the CBAs contain such clauses. We can highlight that CBAs from Spain, Italy, Sweden, again in the Netherlands and Czechia contemplate such topic in almost all their agreements, and similarly Serbia, Poland, and Romania include the topic in all their agreements. As per health and medical assistance, 111 of 134 CBAs refer to such clauses related to the topic. This means the 83%. And overall, all the targeted countries contain such clauses in their agreements. Regarding health and safety workplace, 99 of 111 CBAs refer to such clauses regarding the specific topic. This means that the 90% of the CBAs refer and comply with an official health and safety policy document. This is quite relevant. Work and family arrangements, 103 of 134 CBAs refer to such clauses. This means that 77%. And 10 countries contain such clauses in all their agreements. This means, on the other hand, 17 over 19 countries contain such clauses in their CBAs. As per gender equality issues, 97% of 134 CBAs refer to clauses related to this topic. This means that 72%. We can observe that CBAs from Spain, Italy, Sweden, Netherlands, and Serbia have the highest percentage of CBAs that include such clauses. Regarding wages, which is always a very important macro topic of our analysis, 122 of 134 CBAs refer to clauses on wages. This means that 91% of the CBAs include wage-related clauses and provisions. As per working hours, schedules, holidays, and days of leave, similarly, a very high percentage, the 93% of the CBAs refer to clauses related to this topic. We can add that the average working hours per day is around 8, and weekly is about 40. So basically 8 hours per day and 40 per week. And the average paid annual leave is 24 days. As per workers' representation and conflicts topic, this includes the creation of work council and strikes. 66 CBAs over 134 refer to such clauses, meaning half basically of the sample. And Spain stands out as the country having more CBAs referring to such clauses. And then we go to maybe a more relevant topic in the framework of the BarMetal project. And we see that as per advanced technologies, including artificial intelligence and algorithmic management, only 24 CBAs over 134 refer to such clauses. And we observe that Spain, Germany, Italy are the countries with more chances to contain clauses regarding advanced technologies with more than 50% of their agreements. And regarding the green clauses, by green clauses in our coding book, in our questionnaire, we refer to clauses that contain provisions related to environmental issues, climate change, and or anything that aims at improving the working conditions by providing a greener workplace. And similarly, with what we have seen regarding the advanced technologies and artificial intelligence, only 26 CBAs of 134, this means that 20% contain green-related clauses. Conclusions. Overall, we can see that European metal sector agreements are well structured and quite comprehensive because they substantially cover all the labor, the macro labor topics analyzed. On the other hand, we see that exactly green clauses and artificial intelligence or algorithmic management contents are less represented than other labor macro topics. We can see that DAD issues are relatively recent topics, and here I specify especially for artificial intelligence and algorithmic management. And this is reflected somehow also in their presence, in their lower coverage in their agreements. In fact, in our analysis, we have observed that most recent CBAs have more chances to include such concepts and clauses in their text. At different level, we have also observed that both large companies as well large national social partners have pointed out in their agreements their commitment of including green and artificial intelligence or algorithmic management clauses in their CBAs in the future. We have, for example, within the clauses that we have observed, mostly as also that can be considered as best practices in the CBAs, we have found that regarding the green clauses, we have found clauses regarding sustainable practices to achieve climate neutral production and the protection and improvement of internal and external environment. While regarding advanced technologies, the training for employees regarding new AI tools, the right to disconnect, and the data protection. And I would like to conclude with some conceptual notes that regarding the same point. All the CBAs analyzed focus only on the agreement that have been annotated in the frame of BarMetal project. So the number of the CBAs per country which have been collected and annotated are solely based on their availability and the social partners' cooperation in sharing them. At the same time, another conceptual note which is very important is that the analysis focuses only on what is explicitly stated in the text of the agreements, regardless of any assumption or what is established by the labor law in other separate documents, including the labor law. So, for example, and also, if we want to see all the coding schemes, the questions, and the options, you can refer to the latest CBA's database codebook, and you can find the link the link to the codebook here in blue.
Thank you very much, Gabriele.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also for staying within the time span, and I'll give the floor right away to Barbara for the last presentation of our session. Please, Barbara. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Barbara, you're muted.
Thank you very much.
Please.
I'm sharing my screen. Give me a second. I'm supposed to speak about one of the product which we produce in this project. It's a toolkit. But let's allow me to start with some, let's say, general consideration, because this can be a kind of the background. Very recently, on 17 September, Ursula von der Leyen informed us about the composition of the new European Commission. And for the first time, there is no commissioner in his or her dossier. The jobs and social rights protection, qualified jobs are in dossier. We have a commissioner which are dealing with just and competitive transition, with industrial strategy, skill and preparedness, or the word sustainable is in the dossier of commissioners, but we won't find directly a commissioner who will be dealing with qualified quality of jobs. And I think this is telling us something, telling us that from one point of view, European Commission is putting a lot of hopes in the social dialogue. We have the Article 4 of the Directive of Adequate Minimum Wage. We have some recommendation on social dialogue in member states. But from the other point, the crucial is this bottom-up process. So do we really have this kind of the consideration in the process of information and consultation and in collective agreements? So what we prepare in our our project, we have to take into consideration building this kind of the toolkit, a different legal framework in particular country, different national practice, and different level of advance of the social dialogue. And this is pretty important, also the dual or single channels of worker representative. So we're trying to be very, very general in the steps which we prepare for the worker representative and employers. And of course, taking into consideration general legal framework, because right to the information consultation we have in EU legislation, for instance, in the legislation connected with European Work Council, with the right to information and consultation, but also in some other area like health and safety, this right to information and consultation is already entered in a European law. So we propose steps which can be used by workers' representative or trade union to make some kind of the preparation. Because as we heard from the previous presentation, for instance, Monika Martiskova was saying about it, or our colleague from Romania, Alina, that classic topics dominate in the process of collective negotiation. Classic topics, I mean, working organization, time organization, and wages. So we need to focus more on these DAD topics. So first, the trade union leader, worker representative leaders should learn about the factors which can be described by employer and discuss with the employer other factors which the trade union can point to, which are not on the radar of the employer, which are connected with the greening, connected with automatization. And what the parties should do is jointly estimate the extent of the effect of and what is very important, the time perspective, when these identified factors can affect the particular company. And of course, always when we speak about time perspective, very often also during, for instance, Polish case study, which I were preparing, social partners on both sides were mentioning that the legal system is changing very rapidly, that the Green Deal is a kind of the work in progress, and it's very hard and very difficult to predict, even in the medium term, not to speak about long-term consequence in this area. And in the step 3, the parties should jointly define opportunities, risks emerging from DAD and their impact on skills needs. Of course, this is rather obvious. Many previous speakers were speaking about skills, qualification, competence, and what will be impact on the work size and general working condition. So this process in these steps is, of course, not the action that one should take once and that's it, but this is a continuous process. And this process should lead to some joint action. And in these joint actions, we should always again remember about some basic, which is creation of trust, creation of mutual understanding. What should be done on the regular basis, mapping assessment of the opportunities as challenge, which are connected with the DID process, and overview of the situation and the adoption of the strategies for the process of transition. And what is somehow, maybe it will sound a little bit weird, crucial, is the fact of regular monitoring, follow-up, learning, evaluation. So this is not some kind of the circle that we can make once, but this is a process which we should be do on a somehow daily basis. So what it's I think quite useful in the toolkit which we prepare in this project are questions. These questions, and of course I'm not going to present them, all of them, because you can find them on the website. These questions are divided into 3 categories: question for the trade union, question for employers, and some kind of the common question which both parties can ask themselves to be prepared to participate in this process, which I describe on the first 2 slides. And when we look at this general question, it's very important to answer: our social partners are aware of the policy, of the employer social dialogue and the achievement of European social dialogue, not generally in the metal sector, but in this kind of the subsector or the sub-policy, which are connected with the particular profit or the particular company. It's also very important to ask the question how the DID process are going on, as I use this very general term, at the main competitors or in the value chain, at the subsidiaries and of the suppliers of the particular company. As you can imagine, the question for trade union are not only question which would allow them to assess how deeply the process of information and consultation is going on in particular company, but there are also questions connected with the building awareness among the workers, among the trade union members, and some kind of the promotion of the greening behavior. This can give us a kind of more comprehensive policy to the process of the greening, which, as you know, maybe this is my Polish Central European perspective, sometimes is found as a kind of the troubles coming from the Brussels and not something that is really inside the way of the thinking of the common rank and file trade union member. And this set of questions, of course, also questions the employers, which are mostly connected with the training plans. Training plans, you have look at the gender perspective, you have look at the perspective of the old workers who has a specific need connected with training. This set of questions can give social partners a kind of the hour of honest when every answered no to the particular question. It's not a we shouldn't think this as a kind of the problem, but we should consider this answer no to the particular question as a kind of the challenge, as the kind of the something that can be improved and something that can lead in the end what would be a kind of the goal in the perspective of the introducing to the area of negotiation this topic connected with digitalization, automatization, and greening. So you can find this tool. This tool is in English, but this is rather basic language. So without any problem during artificial translation, we can use it in the country as a kind of the inspiration for the social partners, as something that can, of course, be adopted to the specific need of a particular company. So all I can do is invite you look at this toolkit and again look at this as a kind of the broader spectrum. If there will be no bottom-up process and if we will not see more of this greening clause and clause connected with artificial intelligence and clause connected with digitalization in the collective agreements, then unfortunately the answer is social dialogue useful in this process of transition, of just transition, will be very much digitable. Thank you very much.
You are muted, Angelo.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I was thanking Barbara once again for your presentation, and we have come to the end of this second session of collective bargaining. And now we move on to our roundtable session with social partners, and I'll give the floor to Monica for the introduction of the roundtable session. Thank you.
I think you were. I'm introducing the
Marta,
session,
scusa,
or
I'm really sorry.
because the agreement was that
I'm sorry, Marta. Yes, please.
Okay,
I'm
no
sorry.
problem.
I misread. Thank you.
No problem. Yes, so we are slowly moving on, and we have heard a lot of inputs emerging from research and from the work of almost 2 years. And now we are moving to a session where we will hear how the social partners actually pick up these points. How do they react? What kind of strategies they develop? And what are the key lessons for the metal sector to move on to address the DAD challenges? And if I can have the slide, please. Thank you.
Yeah, 1 second.
It is really our pleasure to welcome social partners who are here today with us and who will be able to share their views in this panel. The panel will be moderated by Pauline Osse from the WageIndicator Foundation. And on the panel, we have Isabelle Barthez, who is the Deputy General Secretary at the Industrial European Trade Union. Welcome, Isabelle. Then we have Isabel Sobrino Mate, who is a Senior Policy Advisor on the employer side, so at the CEMET, European Tech and Industry Employers. Welcome, Isabel. And the last panelist is Maurizio Oreggia. I'm not sure if I'm reading it correctly. And he is the coordinator for the automotive industry from the Italian Federation of FIOM, Sigil. So I hand over now to Pauline, and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Marta. My name is Pauline Osse. I would like to do with you the last session of this morning related to BarMetal. And as we all heard, let's say the issues researchers came up with. My first question to all of you, let's say the three of you, and anyone who likes to drop a message already in the chat box, feel free to do it. What is your overall impression? Because let me say this, 2 years ago when we started this project, it was something like, this is the coolest topic you can ever think of. Very exciting. And if you hear now all the conclusions, the challenges, the things, what is your first feeling? Is it still possible? Is just transition still super cool, or is it impossible? Isabel, just one liner.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I had the pleasure to listen to part of the presentation, which I find really interesting. The first thing I was planning to say is that this transformation that we try to plan is not happening in a vacuum. I mean, there are a number of other elements which are making it more challenging than we thought. We have fierce competition, global competition, coming both from the US and from China. And for industry like the industry I'm representing, which is metal, chemical, you've mentioned energy intensive, we have also energy, textile. Of course, the price of energy is crucial. So this is playing into this whole transition
It's really
debate.
fighting against it. Yeah.
One point, what I think you said for me was very interesting in your analysis is that you're bringing together, we often talk about the twin transition, green and digital. You're bringing an element which is extremely important, which is automation. And this, I think we are not sufficiently focusing on that, because beside the transformation challenge, what we have also is an automation challenge, which actually it will lead to increased productivity. We don't really see it yet. We are still in the middle. We are in the rough water of the transformation.
You hope.
We hope. We look at previous major industrial revolution. We only saw the productivity gain after, actually. And I think we also have to anticipate that in our discussion.
Thank you. And Isabel, what is your feeling? Is your feeling that we are in the middle of a drama after a couple of years of working on this, or are you still optimistic? Just very short in the beginning. Huh?
Yes. Okay. So yeah, good morning to everyone, and also very happy from CMET, employer organization representing the interests of the metal engineering and technology-based industries. We are actually engaged in a social dialogue together with Industrial Europe. Monica referred to it very well. I mean, I will not say we are in the middle of a drama, but certainly we are in the middle of a transformation which is going faster and faster, and where it is difficult to foresee the challenges, because it really goes faster, and every year we are facing new challenges. Yeah, we are now facing green and digital transformation, but also we are facing labor shortages, we are facing fierce globalization, the shortage of skills, which is there for years. But I think, and this is why also we are in this very good research project, that we still believe in social partnership and in social dialogue and in collective bargaining and the critical role they have to play. Of course, we are the last intervenient, so many of the things that we are going to see, I think, have already been highlighted during.
No, but it's good to hear that you're optimistic. Yes. So where
I am optimistic
says, well, it's quite a challenge, you say no. It's not a drama. It can be more. And Mauricio, what do you think? Are you in the middle of a drama or not really? I come with more munition. Huh? So what is you, very short, do you have the feeling that just transition and changing the metal industry, is it possible, or is it so dramatic that we rather can hand it over to the Chinese? Are you there? I can't hear you.
Your audio doesn't seem to have connected, Mauricio. Just if you click on the arrow next to the mic and see where the speaker input is. Now you're on mute. Now I can ask you to unmute.
Maurizio, sembra che il tuo audio non sia connesso. Forse all'inizio non avevi autorizzato la connessione dell'audio. Sorry, I just made things quicker. Riprova.
No, so again.
Otherwise, we can call.
Otherwise, no worry. Try and fix together with Armanda. In the meantime, we go back. We go back to Isabel and to the other Isabel, because we have two Isabels. First, the trade union Isabel, I would say. If you look at training for as many people as possible to do the transition, what is your feeling? Is it possible? Is it possible if you use, that's the instrument of collective agreements, or do you need to have something which is way faster? Because as we all know, introduction of AI is going already way faster than any other introduction which we had before. How can you work on that? How can you make sure that you're workers are in time trained, in time do the right thing, whether they're female or elderly or young ones or migrants, because there is anyway shortage. How do you solve it?
First thing, I will answer by saying, train for what? For which job? So the first thing we have to solve is, where are the new jobs actually? I mean, and this is why we've been calling now for just transition for a while, calling for industrial policy, for resources, for just transition framework, and of course for social dialogue. It's been mentioned, the key role of social dialogue. But if we look at training, it's of course part of the equation. One thing I'd like to stress as well, I mean, you've talked a lot about the skill shortages, actually, but I haven't heard you talking about the quality jobs. What is really important in this equation as well is this whole transformation lead to quality job, because right now, this is one of the reasons why workers actually are not going to some of the other new jobs. I give the example of the battery sector. In some countries, the job in this industry are really appalling. So coming back to skills, yes, of course, the social partners have a key role to play in anticipation the skills need and communicating, working smoothly with the training provider, with the education system, but also as social partners. Of course, we as trade union, we are calling for an individual right for training. It's and in this instrument that we call on anticipation on the management of change, this is a key aspect. But it's not sufficient. I mean, we need then the social partners on the ground to negotiate agreement, preferably at sector level, because what we hear, I know there is a lot of representative from Central and Eastern Europe. We had many meetings with them around this topic, because we worked a lot on the topic, is that this is the right level to establish, for instance, in the metal sector, a right for training, because what we hear is that companies are hesitant to invest because there is always the risk that they train the workers, but then the workers go to work next door. So this is the right level, but there is also a place for the state. And there is a role for the social partners also to organize. So the access, make it even at company level, you have to organize how do you actually make training an integral part of the work, because this is a continuous, here we're talking about also continuous training. We are talking about upskilling and reskilling. There is the question of the cost. I mean, companies, we talk a lot about skills and training, but I mean, companies are not investing enough in training, at least in some countries. And there is an issue of recognition. On these three aspects, the social partners at sector level have a role to play. I will leave it here because I know that there are...
Well, I would say, let's right away go to Isabel from the employers. Basically,
Pauline, when you want, we are ready, yeah? Because Maurizio...
Yeah, I've seen it. No worry. I come to Maurizio just after. I just go first to the employers and then Maurizio, I come to you. So just a sec. First, Isabel from the employers organization. What you hear from Isabel Bart is that basically you as employers need to do much more. So you let's say have to pay for it. You have to create better schemes. Is that realistic? Listen about what the person from Germany said. Small and medium enterprises have anyway a big problem with training people, let apart that they find people. What I hear from Isabel Bart, it's a bit your problem.
Yes. So first thing that I would like to say that, of course, as an employer organization and a social partner, for us, upskilling and reskilling policies should be put, at the center of our new industrial strategy. So upskilling, we cannot do the green and the digital transition without proper upskilling and reskilling policies. This is why also we are always calling, both at European level and at national level, for policymakers to invest massively in upskilling and reskilling of the workforce, especially in those sectors that are undergoing the very big transformations, such as automotive, but not only, shipbuilding, etc. For upskilling and reskilling, of course, as Isabel already mentioned, we fully believe in the role of social partnership. When it comes to collective agreements, we believe that these are a key instrument to deal with the transformation of the world of work. And I will now give 2 examples that are dealing with upskilling and reskilling policies, but we do not even need to go to collective agreements. Social partners, as Isabel mentioned, they have a key role when it comes to upskilling and reskilling. For example, to provide information on the type of training that is available, because we all know that there is plenty of trainings available online, but we do not know which are the quality ones, which are the ones which are more connected to the needs of the company, but at the same time to the skill sets of the employees. So we need social partners to guide, to advise on all this, to furnish the information, the type of training that exists, etc. We also need to make training more accessible, more easy. We do not fully agree, and Isabel knows this, in the right to training, because we do not see this as a solution to enhance training. So we have a bit different views on this, but on the other points that she has mentioned, I fully agree to them. One of the things that I would like to say is that we have very good examples of how collective agreements are dealing with upskilling and reskilling policies. One of them, but this is a cross-industry example, is, for example, this agreement on transition employment. I do not remember the full name, excuse me, which was agreed by the social partners in Sweden 2 years ago. And when there is a basic premise where the individual has an extensive right to training. So we believe very much in this kind of social partner agreements. We also have a very good agreement at the sectoral level in Italy, but probably Mauricio is going to be able to explain this much better. So the social partners in the metal industries, they agreed in the framework of the collective agreement also 2 years ago that they, of course, should enhance continuous training. And in order to put this in practice, because it's very good to have this in paper, but we need to put it in practice. So they have developed a digital platform, which is called Metaprendo, which I think currently gathers over 1 million workers. Maybe I'm not fully correct on the numbers, and over 18,000 companies, that is facilitating the training of the workforce, but also that is facilitating companies, especially SMEs, to certify this training. Because also here I want to recall that the metal industries is composed in its majority by small and medium-sized companies. Small companies for sure have more problems in putting in place training schemes. And in this sense, we also call for support for companies to put in place training schemes. And one of the things I would also like to say is that in many occasions, much of the training occurs in the workplace, and somehow we are always training and learning new things, but it is difficult to recognize this training. So we should also try to find the ways to recognize what we are learning, let's say, every day in the job. So I think these are my main points. Only maybe one more thing. If I may, transformation goes very fast, and for sure for us, social partners have the possibility, because to have more customized agreements. Legislation is much slower. So if social partners can agree on how to sort out training, we find it that it is the best solution. Thank you. Sorry, because I think I've been a bit long.
No, you're fine. Then what I would, before I go to Mauricio, what I would like to ask is Gerd Bos and Bengt. Where is Bengt? And I know you're still in the group. Please prepare, and you might do it in the chat, a question for the two Isabels, because the Isabel, especially the Isabel Sobrinho Mate, tries to paint a reasonable, optimistic picture. And let's check on them whether they still agree on it. Because, of course, we would like to have a discussion. Then Mauricio, from Sigil in Italy. What is your feeling if we talk about just transition? as Sir Jill, are you powerful enough to have grip on that whole process or not?
Aspetta un attimo. Ok, so let's try and see if it works.
Yeah.
Vai.
Allora, buongiorno a tutti, spero possiate sentirmi. Ringrazio per l'invito di poter partecipare a questa bella discussione. Mi dispiace di non riuscire a collegarmi normalmente, spero che riusciate a sentire quello che dirò. Intanto in Italia siamo in forte ritardo rispetto al tema delle transizioni. Transizioni che, come avete accennato, sono diciamo, transizioni su cui dobbiamo veramente lavorare e recuperare un grande ritardo. Sono transizioni che sono fondamentali proprio per quando si parla della decarbonizzazione, ad esempio, proprio del riuscire a garantire un futuro sul pianeta delle nuove generazioni, piuttosto che quelle che vengono avanti proprio per un'evoluzione rispetto alle nuove tecnologie, la digitalizzazione, l'automazione nei processi produttivi. La situazione purtroppo diciamo che in Italia non è rosea, come dicevo. Io penso al mondo, soprattutto quello che seguo dall'automotive, si sta perpetrando un disastro nel nostro paese. La produzione di auto nel primo semestre di quest'anno rispetto al 2023 è intorno al 30% inferiore. Ma non è solo questo il problema. Il problema è che rispetto alle nuove tecnologie, ad esempio dell'elettrificazione del settore, in Italia abbiamo un modello, abbiamo diciamo un solo modello che viene prodotto mass market, che è quello della 500, abbiamo pochissime unità prodotte che riguardano la Maserati, ma poi di modelli diciamo che guardano a un futuro da questo punto di vista non ne abbiamo. Crediamo fortemente che il dialogo sociale, ergo anche come dire, il ruolo dei lavoratori e delle lavoratrici e dei loro rappresentanti, perché stamattina sentivo parlare in maniera distinta di lavoratori sindacati. Io ci tengo a precisare che io sono un sindacalista, sono un lavoratore. Del sindacato sono i lavoratori che si uniscono per rappresentarsi e quindi evidentemente il ruolo dei lavoratori e dei loro rappresentanti è un ruolo centrale, perché è chiaro che intanto sempre più nel capitale le risorse che si utilizzano per far funzionare le imprese sono della collettività e quindi anche delle lavoratrici e dei lavoratori. E dopodiché sono coloro che materialmente con le loro mani, con la loro intelligenza trasformano, quindi creano la ricchezza che poi sempre più purtroppo non viene ridistribuita. Noi dentro anche questa dinamica di transizione e anche chi la definisce una crisi assistiamo a performance delle aziende sempre migliori rispetto a dividendi, rispetto a stipendi di amministratori delegati e si scaricano esclusivamente sulle lavoratrici e lavoratori. I lavoratori hanno un ruolo strategico fondamentale dentro tutte le transizioni che sono state citate. Nei contratti collettivi nazionali noi mettiamo degli strumenti, ma credo, posso affermare, registriamo forse uno scoglio culturale delle imprese, ma a volte, devo dirlo, anche dei lavoratori. Perché noi nel contratto del 2016 abbiamo inserito la formazione continua, l'abbiamo inserito sulla base diciamo di esperienze per cui dopo la crisi del 2008 abbiamo constatato che chi perdeva il lavoro, dopo magari 30 anni che sapeva utilizzare un programma, se era un impiegato piuttosto che un macchinario, se fosse stato un operaio, si trovavano in un mondo del lavoro completamente stravolto, completamente cambiato. E quindi da lì la necessità di inserire nel contratto una formazione continua come un elemento per mettere sulle spalle anche dell'azienda una responsabilità sociale di formare il lavoratore non solo
Is that possible, Maurizio?
nella propria fabbrica, ma per stare con i tempi che cambiano e le nuove tecnologie.
Sorry, aspetta un attimo, Maurizio, c'era una domanda da Pauline. Pauline, sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, because I can understand that you would like to have the best world for the workers in Italy, but are you able to get these clauses also in your collective agreements?
Se la domanda è se
Noi nei contratti abbiamo messo queste clausole, ma non sono state rispettate. Semplicemente non sono state rispettate. E quindi noi registriamo pochissima formazione. La formazione spesso e volentieri viene utilizzata ancora, come dire, unilateralmente da parte delle imprese, spesso anche per, come dire, mi viene da dire, per dividere i lavoratori. Un po' il tema della formazione è legato alla riforma dell'inquadramento professionale che noi abbiamo introdotto nell'ultimo rinnovo contrattuale, proprio perché i criteri su cui secondo noi bisogna valutare la professionalità che i lavoratori esprimono sono cambiati e continuano a cambiare. C'è la polivalenza, la polifunzionalità, il miglioramento continuo dei lavoratori. E anche da questo punto di vista registriamo una resistenza da parte delle imprese, perché l'inquadramento, che chiaramente è legato a un salario, spesso e volentieri viene riconosciuto l'inquadramento in maniera, come dire, soggettiva, non su basi oggettive, tant'è che in molti posti di lavoro a parità di mansione hai inquadramenti e salari diversi. E come sapete il gap, soprattutto per quanto riguarda le donne nel nostro paese, è un gap che è scandaloso, perché evidentemente gli spazi che hanno per pagare meno le donne stanno proprio in quei frangenti lì, cioè nella unilateralità con cui le aziende possono, diciamo appunto, riconoscere professionalità o fare formazione alle persone. Quindi lo strumento c'è, è inagito.
Okay, thanks a million. Very good. Back to trade unions, employers on EU level. If you hear what Mauricio is saying, let's say in the country level, then it again feels a bit like a drama. Like you want to do a lot, but then the employers are not listening. Like they're always not listening. It's a bit that complaint. First, is that fair, Isabel Bart? Is it fair to put all problems on the employer side, or is it also trade unions, or maybe the CBA, the collective agreement instrument, which is way too slow to follow quickly what's going on in your market? Look what Volkswagen is doing in Germany. It's pretty shocking. Look like new policy, what they want to implement in the Netherlands. Then you again will have less electrical cars. So there are serious problems. What do you think, Isabel?
Well, going back to what Maurizio is saying, what I hear is don't make the workers pay for this crisis. And we completely agree with that. Yeah. The second thing Maurizio is saying is that we need investment. We need massive investment now to finance this transformation. And Maurizio is saying one thing, which I'm sure also resonates to the ears of colleagues in Central and Eastern Europe, is that the investment have to flow everywhere, not only in a couple of countries. And so this is why we are calling for an investment plan, actually, that can benefit everybody in Europe. Going back to Volkswagen, I think this has been mentioned by Gerhard in the beginning of his presentation. What we are very concerned is we are scrapping assets. We are scrapping, there is a risk of scrapping investment. If you saw the decision made in Belgium, in Audi, actually the Audi plant, which is going to close, is actually an electric, is producing electric car, actually. So for us, we have one demand, and that goes back to what Gerhard was saying is, I mean, in these very troubled time, what we should avoid is closing plant, actually, because when they close, it's very difficult to reopen them.
To set up.
And the second one is avoid forced redundancies, because this goes back to training. What we are trying here is to organize a smooth transition of workers from one job to another, without experiencing the trauma of forced redundancies. So again, we are actually on the same wavelength to say, well, we have actually to make it together with the employers, but of course we have demands towards the employers.
That means, Isabel, that you have a very good story. Are they listening to you at the other side, at the employer side?
Well, I think what we are will be now trying to do at all levels is, first of all, we are here speaking to the policy makers, but I mean, employers, yeah, I mean, we are saying, well, basically now you have collective bargaining rounds starting in some countries where you have sector bargaining, and you know that it's not the case everywhere, but this is actually the type of demand that now we have to look at. I mean, a ban on a plant closure and a ban on forced redundancies. And as Maurizio is saying, a real investment into training.
Yeah, I would like to quickly, so Isabel Sobrino, I would like to ask Bengt Larsen, because you put in, you just can unmute and then you can ask your question, ideally to the employers, I would say.
Yeah, but I think...
The question is spot on.
Thank you so much, and thanks for a very good discussion so far. Being from Sweden, the question is to both parties, and it's about cooperation, of course, then. So, I mean, the big difference, and you talked about the need for sectoral dialogue, sectoral cooperation, and collective agreement. So, my question is, how can we go about strengthening the sectoral partners, the dialogue, the cooperation, and the production of collective agreements across Europe, and particularly in this case regarding re- and upskilling and training? We have had examples from, say, Germany, and you talked about Sweden, and we have Denmark, and it's not only about collective agreements, it's actually about joint organizations, joint insurance systems, joint committees to produce information and strategies.
Joint investment.
And represent the sector jointly towards the government, both employers and workers, since, I mean, competitiveness is good for both. So what would you say?
I will ask the employees first. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the role of the European sectoral social dialogue committees in this?
Isabel Sobrino.
Yes, maybe just one remark on this debate on the upskilling and reskilling. I mean, I think it's also fair to say that right now, I think there is plenty of money devoted to upskilling and reskilling policies at European level and at national level. The thing is that in many occasions, it is difficult to reach this money, for example, for small companies. And I would like to stress again the problem of small companies, to put in place upskilling and continuous training. And this should be facilitated. And this is one of the demands we constantly do. We fully believe in upskilling and reskilling. I just mentioned it before. I think there is not only one solution to enhance continuous training. For example, I think motivation of workers is also very important, and guidance, because we have also seen in some countries where there is the right to training that unfortunately low-skilled workers are not, for whatever reason, are not following this training. So there is an important role to be played here on motivation, on guidance. This is very important. If we come now to the question of Lars, I think it was, so for us about the role of EU social partners. So, I mean, we have a social dialogue. So for us, a social dialogue at European level plays an important role. Right now, for example, as social partners, we are involved in an extensive project which is called Trireme. The name doesn't matter, but one of our tasks here is actually to gather those initiatives, and it doesn't have to be, like Lars mentioned, only collective agreements. It can be all kind of solutions agreed by the social partners at local level, at regional level, at company level, at national level, that have proved to be successful to deal with upskilling and reskilling. But also, and Isabel always refers to this, and we also think it's very important, we are also trying to see what has not worked, to not repeat the same mistakes. So we are gathering all these kind of initiatives within the framework of our social dialogue, within the framework of this European funded project. And we are going to extract conclusions about these initiatives. We will also put together some policy recommendations for policymakers, for stakeholders within the MET industries, within the wider mobility ecosystem, because what we are seeing is that there are solutions that have been working. It's just that in many occasions we are not aware of them. So yeah, I think the social dialogue at European level, for example, when it comes to exchange of information, best practices, what has worked, what has not worked, it is a very important forum. It is a relevant forum. So yeah, even if we do not reach any binding agreements, like Monica very well mentioned at the beginning of this panel. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Isabel, Bart, are you happy with this answer? Or is it, because what you each time feel is that at the employer side, it feels like there are hardly any big problems. We just solve it, it's planned already. In a new round of collective agreements, we'll be fine. And then Isabel, what is your remark on it?
I would say on the one hand, I agree. And on the other hand, I also see a big problem. And I'm saying that I have in my little screen now, I see Barbara. I mean, we work a lot with our colleagues in Central and Eastern Europe because we see that they have huge challenges in strengthening, rebuilding their collective bargaining system, actually. So, and of course, now we have the directive on the minimum wage and collective bargaining. So, I mean, for us, it's definitely a tool, actually, to promote collective bargaining and see what can we do on the ground, actually, and capacity building is essential. I mean, trying to identify the obstacles and to collective bargaining, and it's been a very, I mean, we've done a tour of Central and Eastern Europe, and it's been really interesting, enlightening, I would say, about what can be done. And if I would say, I would have one plea towards the employers, because our employers counterpart always say, yes, we support collective bargaining, but basically we respect the autonomy of social partners. Well, what we see is one of the big bottlenecks in Central and Eastern Europe is the refusal of the employers to sit at the bargaining table. I mean, what we actually saw is that the structures are there. Even in some countries, the extension, I mean, you know that how controversial the extension is in some countries. I also have banked it right in front of me, actually. So I know that in the north of Europe, it's not really popular, at least in some countries. But I mean, and I think this is something that we could do together with the employers, actually, kind of motivate them to engage more into collective bargaining, but also to be stronger, because one of the problems is that what you have very weak employers association in some countries, and actually that prevent them actually to be at the bargaining table. So, well, these we could also do work together.
Cool, thanks a lot. I would like to go to Mauricio now, because so what you hear well is, in short, employers at European level, they suggest there is actually not a real problem. We have Isabel on her side. She has an idea of how to improve it. Basically, what you say is the new directive on, let's say, on minimum wages, adequate minimum wages and collective agreements will support. Now, Mauricio, if you hear this, what is then your take? Is it still very difficult in Italy, or can you make use of the new directive? How will you see it?
Ok,
allora, intanto penso che c'è un tema a cui si faceva riferimento prima, di risorse, che voglio riprendere, perché la digitalizzazione, l'automazione, la decarbonizzazione le possiamo affrontare con, diciamo, una messa comune di risorse che devono essere però vincolate a elementi di tenuta sociale. Bene faceva la compagna prima a richiamare il fatto che non possiamo permetterci di perdere i posti di lavoro. Bisogna, a nostro avviso, chiaramente, però che sia chiaro anche, come dire, il modello di relazioni in termini anche di responsabilità. In Italia Stellantis ha un contratto specifico di lavoro. Prima, quando facevamo riferimento alla formazione continua, facevamo riferimento al contratto di Federmeccanica, il più grande, diciamo, contratto collettivo privato nel paese, che si applica a oltre 1,5 milioni di lavoratori e lavoratrici. Ma in Stellantis c'è un altro contratto specifico che ha un modello, diciamo, forse di cogestione, con delle commissioni che dovrebbero, utilizzo condizionale, come dire, confrontarsi e interagire su tutti gli aspetti organizzativi, prospettici dell'azienda. Utilizzo condizionale perché non avviene. È un modello in cui c'è una partecipazione di rappresentanti dei lavoratori che non sono nemmeno votati dai lavoratori. Sono tutte delle commissioni specifiche sulla formazione, sull'organizzazione degli orari di lavoro, cioè è una commissione che su carta è bellissima, solo su carta. E io penso che quel modello lì è un modello, come dire, che deve essere chiaro. Finché tutto funziona va bene. Quando le cose non funzionano, quel modello lì salta. Perché, come dire, la logica che muove l'impresa oggi, la multinazionale, spesso non è più una logica industriale, è una logica che ha una logica di finanziarizzazione. Quindi il problema anche di co-gestire c'è un limite. Cioè, bisognerebbe partire dal fatto che l'impresa si muova come la classica impresa industriale che crea ricchezza e parte di quella ricchezza la reinveste per il futuro e la ridistribuisce sui lavoratori, riconosce la professionalità dei lavoratori. Questa cosa non avviene. Quindi io penso che anche a livello, diciamo, europeo noi dovremo valorizzare il lavoro dei CAE, che purtroppo oggi hanno solamente, diciamo, un ruolo di informazione e di consultazione, ma non hanno potere, come dire, negoziale, e spesso volentieri, come dire, non riescono nemmeno ad anticipare quello che possono essere le scelte, perché vengono subite, che l'azienda decide e poi magari il CAE deve anche rincorrere, quindi non si rispettano nemmeno da questo punto di vista. Quindi c'è un elemento che bisogna mettere sul tavolo della discussione, che sono i rapporti di forza.
Aspetta, ok. Aspetta un attimo. Yes?
Okay, that's good.
Dicevo che nella nostra...
Aspetta.
Yeah, thank you, Maurizio. Barbara, can you come in with your question?
You want me to come right now? Like,
yeah, you come with a question. Yeah,
I thought that we use only that. Now, my idea was that we very often use the nomination of employer organization, but the question is, from Central Europe perspective, at least from the Polish perspective, that very often this organization are registered under the law on employer organization, but in reality they are not conducting any attempt of negotiation. So they don't have, and now is the crucial point, what I want to stress, if you have time, they do not have mandate from their members to conduct any kind of negotiation connected with anything which is social, like wages or working condition. So this is a question. Are they really an organization? Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Isabel, Sabrina, so employers, since you're the employer in the room, so you're in the center of my screen, and you came with lovely, sweet answers, but each time they play the problem back to your side. What is your answer? Let's say what Barbara comes up with in Poland, I would say that is problematic. It might be so impossible to solve it.
Yeah, yes, actually, I would like to respond a bit to what Barbara is saying, but also to what Isabel said before. So first of all, I would like to insist that for us, social dialogue, social partnership, collective bargaining is fundamental to enhance competitiveness and also quality jobs. And I think we are all aware of these studies where it is well proved that those countries with strong social partnership and collective bargaining, they tend to have lower levels of low-paid workers, lower levels of unemployment, good quality jobs, etc. So we are firm believers in collective bargaining. Of course, there is the autonomy of social partners, and we need to fully respect the autonomy of social partners. So we cannot interfere with the competence of social partners when it comes to determining the parties, the content of the collective bargaining, the way it functions, etc. Having said that, it's true that in Central and Eastern countries, social partnership for different reasons, historical reasons, national traditions, other reasons, and collective bargaining is not so well developed as in Western countries. In this sense, I mean, we have to strike the right balance, like to motivate employer organizations, but also trade union organizations to engage in social dialogue and in collective bargaining without interfering, without forcing them to do so, because the idea is that we need to respect the autonomy of social partners. There is capacity building of social partnership. This was mentioned by Isabel Bartes. This is very important. I mean, we fully believe in supporting capacity building because we need to first have representative social partners at the national level so that they are engaged in social dialogue and in collective bargaining in an autonomous way. So yes, we agree with what Isabel is saying. We should support capacity building, and also we would like to do it from CIMED, but sometimes we cannot. I mean, we also have shortage of staff in CIMED. It's difficult to be all over the place. But of course, yes, we would like to support capacity building. But as I say, we cannot interfere with the competence of social partners. We need to
Thanks a lot. So all the will is at the employer side, at least to try to solve as much as possible. I would like to, Camilla, use Camilla. Camilla came up with a question. Can you show your face, Camilla, and where you're from? You're from Finland. Can you pose your question? And is it for the employers or the trade unions?
I think this is a general question to panelists in general.
Go ahead, come.
So I wrote in the chat that I'd like to raise into discussion the question of data rights and, for example, algorithmic management in workplaces. We talk about digitalization here, and I think the conversation focuses on the threats to employment and maybe de-skilling, but we don't talk about data privacy questions or non-discrimination or workers' well-being more in general. We can talk about algorithmic management, we can talk about digital surveillance. There are many aspects coming with these kinds of questions when it comes to data. A lot of data is gathered from employees these days by the employers. So maybe my question to the panelists is this something that should be raised up in the discussions as well, or are they already there? Thank you.
Okay, great point. I transfer this question and would like to have a very short answer from Isabel Bart, Trade Unions, EU. What is your answer on this?
Well, my answer is very topical, actually. I was 3 days ago in a seminar, and we were talking about the issue. I mean, we were talking about digital organization, how the unions actually can recruit using technique used by, for instance, Cambridge Analytica, actually. I mean, you know, this technique that can be very disruptive, but actually was very, very useful. And I would start by saying, well, the problem you start talking about AI is that you don't know anything about AI, because nowadays it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and data is absolutely everywhere, because you're talking about personal data, but it's also about data in production. So, I mean, the challenge, and I would say it's a challenge for the society as a whole, actually, is to be more aware, actually, to develop, to be more AI literate, to understand what can happen, and then to be more critical. And this is valid. This is valid at the workplace. I mean, to understand that, especially in industry, I mean, there is massive production data now collected for good reason, you know, to be more effective. But sometimes these data can be used also to monitor workers for something that goes beyond the normal work relationship, actually. And this is and then this is disruptive because it's about invading your privacy.
It's about fading out people almost.
So it is, I would say, we have to, I mean, for the trade union, it's a huge challenge, because you were talking, we are developing strategies to negotiate around AI, but you have to understand actually what it means. So the challenge is, how do you move from negotiating about wages to move to negotiating about everything, AI, about equality. So, I mean, there is a lot of training to do also for the trade union and to some companies as well.
It feels like an ideal program to make all trade unions in the world totally crazy, isn't it? To, let's say, pile up more topics on them and say, well, you have to be trained on it. Well, of course, for free of charge. That might be too much. I have a question from Marta in the chat box, and I would like to have Gerard Bosch, if you want, to give a very, let's say, small, not a conclusion, but maybe a cool question still to ask. But first, Marta, anyone else who says, I would like to speak up, I would like to hear something because it's concerning my life, my jobs, speak up in the chat box and I get you at stage. First, Marta.
Thank you very much. A lot of this debate is evolving around how policies can support transformation at kind of like an overarching level. But 20 years ago, when I did my PhD, there was a lot of literature about what happens within multinational companies. How is the knowledge being transferred to subsidiaries that were being established in Central and Eastern Europe at that time? And there was some kind of internal competition, shifting production from Portugal to Slovakia, from Hungary to Romania or somewhere. And I feel we are a little bit back in this debate, that it polarizes us. And it's just a provoking question whether we share this idea, and whether the headquarters of the investors are actually also concerned with the fact that the reskilling, upskilling themes are flowing over to their subsidiaries abroad, or they have completely focused, or they focus on their subsidiaries in Germany, in Belgium, and so on, while the Slovak, Polish subsidiaries are left alone to fight this battle. And in the end, we have to see whether we manage the upskilling, reskilling on our own, or is there some support coming internally along the supply chain? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Marta. I would add up that, let's say, the directive on adequate minimum wages might help. The question from Marta is to Isabel and Matej, so to the employers.
Yes, regarding this question, which it's a bit complicated, I would say, and a bit challenging. I mean, I would like to insist that for employers, upskilling and reskilling is crucial. We cannot do the twin transition without upskilling and reskilling. So, of course, it is crucial all across the value chain. This is what I can respond. And in relation to the question on AI, which I think it's also a very good question, first of all, I would like to refer to the GDPR, which I think already gives a good legal framework on data gathering, etc. We have recently, I mean, the EU has recently approved the Artificial Intelligence Act. It is not in force, of course. Artificial Intelligence Act has also two provisions, two chapters on employment and education and training, which we believe are quite good already. Also, we are trying to find out within our employer organizations because of course this is a very new issue, and at the same time it's growing very fast. And like Isabel said, it is challenging for trade unions, but it is also challenging for employers. So we are trying to find out within our employers how are they dealing with this, and also how are they dealing with this if they are already discussing it with their trade unions at national level. So yes, we are let's say in the first steps. Also maybe to recall that we have a very transversal paper on artificial intelligence in the MET industries that was agreed by Industrial and CMET. Of course, it's very generic, but it touches, I think, upon the main chapters: health and safety, human resources, skills, etc. But it is very generic. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. We have a couple of minutes, but I would like to ask Gerard Bos, because you have been following the discussion over the last couple of years. You know now what's happening with in Germany, you know what's happening with Volkswagen or with the Volkswagen Group. How can you see this debate from this morning in that respect? Have you the feeling that you will have grip on it, that your research over years is effective for it? Or do you have the feeling it's a lost case? What's your feeling at the moment?
No, it's definitely not a lost case. And I think the transformation will take place even under difficult circumstances. There's no alternative. But it might be stopped through political intervention, which is really a danger, because the companies need clear guidelines for the future to make decisions on investments, to make also for employees to make decisions on training and on their own future. Therefore, we need clear political guidelines. And secondly, what we really need, and this shows, is a broader social dialogue, which takes place in some countries, but not in all countries. And I have a question or two questions in this aspect. The first is, we have a little bit neglected what are the fears of the workers in the companies. And I can say for Germany, the main fear of the workers in the car industry, in the manufacturing industry, is not a lack of training. This might be different in Central and Eastern Europe, where you get a lot of fast food and not good training. But in our country, most workers get good training. Also in Scandinavia, Denmark, I know this. But the main fear of workers is that they lose a well-paid job, and they have to take a job which is less well paid because the company is not covered by a collective agreement. So these wage differentials in the labor market, they create an opposition and a skepticism against the transformation, especially among blue-collar workers, and we can see this in the election results. And this has a disastrous effect on the acceptance of the transformation. And we can do something about this. The Scandinavian countries are more relaxed about structural change than all other countries because of their higher coverage by collective agreements and their good training provisions. And I think what is not asked in this panel is the question, what can the state or what can be done to increase coverage by collective agreements? There can be done something. There are political measures like facilitating the extension mechanism, or we have a big issue in Germany, a collective bargaining compliance act, which means that all public order, you only can participate in getting public orders if you pay according to a collective agreement. And at this level, I can see that the employers are opposing this, and they are not supporting state measures to really facilitate the extension.
Let's quickly check. Let's quickly check on Isabel whether she, whether you accuse her. Isabel, are you happy with, let's say, the state who's managing better the effect of the collective agreements throughout Europe? Are you against it or not?
I mean, I would like to insist on the autonomy of social partners. There are things we cannot force. I mean, we fully believe in this. Those countries where collective bargaining are functioning very well, it's the autonomous social partners that are agreeing on the conditions, on the
So
parties.
no role of the state, no role, no extra.
We do not agree with interfere on the state.
Nice idea, Gerard, but it's not accepted.
Yeah, I mean, I can say it's black or white. There are other ways to do it, but not. We do not
Gerard,
agree with
you had another question.
Yeah, this was my question. This is a political dispute. I would like to hear Isabel's view on this too.
Okay, good.
I think, Gerhard, you have put the nail on. This is essential. You said two things. That first of all, quality jobs. We've kept saying in this whole debate about a just transition is that this transition has to lead to quality jobs. Otherwise, there will be a political backlash. And I think the question of Marta about the role of multinational companies is relevant here, because basically what we've been listening to in Central and Eastern Europe is when we were talking, what about upskilling, reskilling? Our colleagues were saying, well, the companies are hiring third country workers. That was a response actually to the challenge of the transformation. And of course, we have nothing against third country workers, but what is key in this debate is the quality of the job, actually, because the skill shortages hasn't been used actually to put pressure on the employers to improve the quality of the job. So this is one thing. Second question is, I mean, we have a very clear view. Now, Isabel was saying there is a lot of money available for training. There is a lot of money to support companies to decarbonize. There is a lot of money to support this transition. Well, then put the money where our political objectives are. We have now a directive on the adequate minimum wage and collective bargaining. Well, make sure actually that no companies get public money unless there is a collective agreement. So this is the social conditionality is essential now in actually, we were talking about how to make, I mean, I agree with you, the transformation will take place. The only question is how will this transformation take place? And if we don't want to have a political backlash, we have to ensure that this is a socially acceptable transition. So one of our key demands is social conditionality. And the Americans were first, actually, because the Inflation Reduction Act is actually based on social conditionality.
Brilliant. You couldn't have a better conclusion of this morning, I would say. Very good. And well, being a trade unionist, I'm happy that the conclusion is at trade union side, this case. Thanks a lot for all. I will hand over now to Marianka. Then, thank you for the panel, both Isabel and Mauricio. And of course, Gerard, Bengt, and Marta, and Monica, who all came in, Barbara. Thank you. Go ahead, Maria.
So thank you, Pauline, for chairing this very interesting discussion. And Isabel closed her final statement mentioning the Inflation Reduction Act, which is actually a plan that has been designed by a government in order to put together both social rights and economic upgrading. I cannot miss, I mean, it's, I think, very important to discuss today the fact that a new plan for Europe has just been put forward, and this new plan that you might have seen on newspaper, social media, some of you have also commented on, for example, I just see the article by Isabel on Social Europe. It's a plan that has a different type of pillars in terms of European competitiveness. In particular, a model that is based on strong push for competition and that is actually trying to put the idea of a strong Europe based on competition against US and China is potentially a new design of the European system toward a different type of objectives, differently from the new Green Deal phase, and differently also from the phase of directive of social dialogues and minimum wage. So as many observers have underlined, in this new European framework, the role of social dialogue is very loosely put under the table. And I just went through the Part A reports, and you see that in these reports, the word trade unions is mentioned just one time at the beginning, just as disclaimer. This, I believe, is quite important in order to understand the potential path to avoid what has been discussed during the last roundtable with social partners about the political backlash, because so far I'm not really sure that we have still to wait for the effect of the transition. The transition is there, and in many dimensions might be the case that we don't see the effects in terms of productivity, but what we are currently see is a complete form of reorganizational restructuring at the plant level, complete restructuring of the OEM, and GVC rearticulation. In all that, the role of workers and trade unions has not been pivotal in terms of the overall understanding of the process, at least at the high-level political stance. And I believe that one of the most important conclusions of this project, and after having said that, I will go back to the thanks, is the importance of strengthening collective bargaining in all EU member states, promoting institutional convergence towards high standards of coverage and coordination. So the issue of equality of access, of opportunity to a good and better job is something that I believe all institutional setting and all institutional tables should discuss. We need people to be satisfied by the job that they do. And we know from, for example, Gallup reports that dissatisfaction about job is something that is becoming crucial. And we also know that new generation have different type of approach to what the work-life balance is. So it's important that we make sure as responsible of this transition as people that are part of the overall institutional setting, that we make sure that good and high quality jobs are a guarantee, an objective that we want to obtain. And in our reports, this is quite clear in our comparative reports. Another element that I would like to share with you as a take-home is the greater and deeper involvement of the social partners at all levels in elaboration of these policies. And I believe that today we have set discussion that have quite relevant in terms of social dialogue, but maybe we should also go deeper into the way in which we approach the projects, the problems, and not simply having a stake in terms of I defend this position or I defend another position, but really going into collective design of what we meant as potential objective of this transition. And I believe it's also important that the social dialogue is structured without hierarchical type of relationship. So all members should need the same recognition in terms of what they put forward. And this aspect of transparency and horizontal decision making is something that we still lack. I also believe it's quite important, one of the issues that has been raised by one of representative of Italian trade unions, Maurizio, in terms of, sorry, maybe it's not Maurizio, it's always the same Maurizio, but Oreggia, sorry for that. And it's the importance of the institutional dialogue of trade unions at the European level. And the other point that I would like to strengthen and to highlight vis-a-vis our comparative reports and the discussion that we had today is clearly the importance of the right to be informed and the right of consultation. So it's particularly relevant for all the institutional settings and for all the level of discussion, being plant, company, European Parliament, commissions, wherever it is, to put relevance on the right to be informed and to be consulted in terms of the access of workers and their representative to information rights, including in areas specifically related to investments, in terms of automation, robotics, digitalization, algorithmic management. That is something that we did not tackle specifically, but we know it's there, and artificial intelligence as a general trend. And let me also add on that point on artificial intelligence that yes, it is true that we have a directive GDPR from the European Union, but we should also ask ourselves if AI is simply about privacy or is something more. And if it is something more, I don't think that we can limit the legislative role only to privacy issue, but we should think a more broader concept to institutionalize the role of AI, and particularly AI worker management technologies that might be actually quite diffuse, more, I mean, at a faster pace than we expect. Finally, the last point as a policy guidelines that our project and our consortium has put forward is clearly the role of training. So it's essential to guarantee access to education and lifelong learning to address skill shortages, and in particular, trying to develop conditions for the creation of framework agreements on skills and qualifications. So the right to be to receive training is something that has been put forward as a policy guidelines. We know, and it has been clear from the last panel discussion, that negotiation is very important. We know that the process at stake is quite demanding, and that so far the willingness of companies to invest in massive training program has not been clear, and at least has not seen big financing. So the importance of training, it's okay, everybody agrees on that, but then we need to know who put the money and on who is the responsibility. We think, at least I believe is something that is shared among many scholars and researchers of the project, that there should be some collective responsibility in terms of the different actors, including the state, in terms of supporting training programs. Here I close in terms of the concluding remarks. I would like really to thank all participants. We had 71 participants at the peak. Now we are still 68. So I think this conference has been quite important, at least for us, in terms of validation of the results, but also I hope for the external audience that I hope can have appreciated and learned something more about the effects of the digital and automation and decarbonization transition for the world of work in the metal industry. I just recall that this project has been financed by the European Union under the program, under actually the social funds, European Social Fund program, social prerogative and specific competence line, with the aim of improving expertise in the field of industrial relations. This was a call launched in 2020. It was just the COVID, the beginning of the COVID explosion, and it has not been easy also for this consortium to put forward this strong research effort, coordination among us. Many different roles have been served by researchers of the consortium, and I don't want to go through all of them because you are many, but I really would like to thank you and to invite you, if you have a final word that you want to share with us. We still have 1 minute left, so I would like to invite all of you to say a final word about the project, if you like, and a big hug and greetings to everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Marika, for your great closing words and for everybody in joining us today. Like what was shared by Marta in the chat already, we will be sharing all of the project materials, or they are already shared through the CELSI website, what you can see in the link, and you can there find the country reports, the fact sheets, videos made, and all of the results, and all of the partners as well that joined the project. Please feel free to reach out to any of the partners for further questions, and we also hope to continue this important work in the future. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us. We will also be sharing the recording later on, and I'm wishing you a wonderful rest of your day and a beautiful weekend ahead. Thanks, everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.